Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
I'm a fan of classic movies.
Hello and welcome to Ticket Stubs. We talk movies in all their forms, double features, audio commentaries, and everything in between. We take cinema seriously, even if we don't take ourselves too seriously. We're your co-hosts, Kyle and Levi Huffman. I'm Kyle.
I'm Levi.
And here we are back. Finally. It's been a while, as we know. It's been a while since I've done this episode count. Episode 107 we're on now, Levi.
It is kind of funny that, I mean, just by nature of our lives and doing this long enough, that podcasting has got to something that we do periodically, you know, but that it felt like it took a really long time to get to 100, or rather, we got to 100, and then after that, we've kind of just been like, episode 107. It's been like a year or
well, we have our
ago.
Mad Men podcast.
Right, and we did that, and we don't know what the status of that is exactly, because frankly, it takes a lot to do. And sometimes when you're watching a show that great, you kind of just want to watch it. So we don't know. It's still there to eventually maybe happen. But yeah, so I was kind of thought it was funny. We had a very busy summer, which we're going to talk a little bit about. And that I was kind of joking to myself. I was like, maybe we should just wait until Labor Day so we could have done the like Memorial Day, Labor Day, and you know, just be like, well, the summer happened, but we need to get it going here. So
yeah, you know, I know we've talked about this as teachers getting ready to go back to school now. That weirdly, like, I know we've talked about this, but like, you're like both ready to go back, but no, once you start going back, that it's going to take over your life for 10 months, you know. And so, as I always tell my wife, it's like I'm kind of ready to go back at this point. But then once I know I go back, I'm like, if I only had one more week or 2 more weeks or whatever. But, and the irony is, as we know, that like I think we did a good job squeezing in a lot of stuff to this summer. But you can't help but think, I had this list of things I'd like to see happen. Some of them happen, some of them don't. But in the end, I think we maximized our time about as well as we could have. But as you can tell by the episode title, our movies today, our subjects, are Nickel Boys from 2024 and The Mastermind from 2025. 2 recent movies that I think in passing, I've said some things about Nickel Boys. I know at the end of this last year, you mentioned a little bit about, I think, Kelly Reichardt and Mastermind. And this is another thing, too. This podcast has gone on so long, I'm like, wait a minute, have we done a Kelly Reichardt movie yet? I feel like Certain Women was something that we might have either touched on here or there loosely, or I've just even thought about pairing that with something, maybe is what I'm thinking of.
That'd be a hard movie to pair, honestly, because it's very much itself, but...
Yeah. As you may have heard from the last episode, like, we just sprung these movies on each other without the other one knowing what we were going to do, and I think they weirdly... They
were each a movie that the other person wanted the other person to watch, and the other person kept putting off, and so finally it was an excuse for both of us to
they do share the symmetry. We've talked about this, I know, with various things, release dates and schedules and stuff, that these are 2 movies that primarily are going to be seen via streaming. Now, you could say, well, that's everything now, but these specifically had like these short theatrical windows that then got put onto, streaming services.
Yeah.
Amazon Prime with Nickel Boys and Mubi with
and that isn't the case though with movies like the Odyssey, or whatever, where there are people going out to actively see those.
Yeah.
So
I was lucky enough, as we'll talk about later, to see Nickel Boys on the big screen, and I think it is genuinely one of those things. I think it adds to it, as I'm sure I would have appreciated the Mastermind even more had I saw that on the big screen too.
I didn't get to see that on the big screen, so but
and I think these are two movies that are also like historical dramas. They're like Mastermind's loosely set almost 10-ish years after Nickel Boys, or even less really, but so they share a certain companionship as far as more recent also historical movies.
Yeah,
obviously their aims are very different as far as what they're doing, but I do think they are both movies. Actually, another thing aesthetically they share is they're about like textures. They're movies about feelings and vibes, being I think oddly comforting and something you can luxuriate in, and the other being, while immersive, horrific, within that too. So they make for a great contrast, I think.
Yeah.
Before we get into Blue Plate Special, we got a lot of stuff we're going to be talking about with that. The World Cup wrapped up. Now, it seems like it's been a little while now. I guess
it's been about a month almost. Well, no, it's been about 3 weeks.
2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
But if, unless you were hiding under a rock, obviously the World Cup took over this summer in a way that I think I don't really remember a lot of moments in America's soccer history as far as its fandom where
you saw make television history.
You saw soccer achieve a level of interest in this country that I've never seen before. And I think it goes beyond it just purely being in the United States, Mexico, and Canada, but that certainly added, I think, maybe an extra spotlight to it.
Right.
But obviously the World Cup wrapped up again 2-3 weeks ago, Spain beating Argentina. Now, Levi's obviously definitely the bigger soccer fan between us, but I myself am getting more and more into the sport. And Levi wrote an excellent column. I'll probably put the last entry of that as a show within the show notes. You can go and read it. Levi, obviously you thought about and covered the World Cup a lot over these last 2 months. Now that we're a little bit removed from it, any lasting impressions or thoughts as we move into the more traditional soccer schedule of what the World Cup maybe meant or represented this year?
Yeah, and I'll make it very terse because I wrote over 60,000 words about the World Cup this summer. Which is not a flex, more just a statement of my insanity, I guess. I don't know. But it was something that I decided I wanted to do about writing about it because I had a pretty good time writing an essay I did last summer about Monroeville Mall, which we might have brought up on here before. I don't know. Which, funny enough, I feel like a lot more conflicted about what I wrote at that point compared to now, but those things happen, and I admitted to that in my really as the World Cup went on. I felt like I kind of was slowly feeling that way about Yamal, where I'm not necessarily a big fan of his now, but I'm a lot more respecting of his personality. I was already respecting of his ability, but anyway, this is really kind of the first. So I thought, it would be kind of cool to write, a lot about this. Kind of in the vein of Hunter S. Thompson with Fear and Loathing on Campaign Trail 72, writing and getting his stuff published, and it's kind of behind. So, I mean, my hope was, and obviously I'm not going to do anything on that level, but my hope was that by someday reading it later, so this is kind of self-promotion here, but by reading it later, it will still read as interesting. I don't know, to as coverage.
Yeah.
But my point being is this was the first World Cup I really paid a lot of attention to. The last one was what kind of got me into soccer again.
Right, that was in 22 in Qatar.
Yeah, right.
And that was held around Christmas time,
it was like
the end of the year.
Between Thanksgiving and about 2 weeks before Christmas. So that one was a weird one because I was paying attention to it, but didn't understand a lot of the politics in terms of the sport, not in terms of politics,
sure.
in general. and didn't really know a whole lot about it, so was just watching it more casually. I say this with pretty, I'd say, definitive certainty that I will never write about a World Cup like I did this again.
Yeah, because as you said, I think on one hand you appreciated thinking about it as intensely as you did, but on the other hand, you didn't totally get to slip in and just watch it.
No, it was not an entertainment experience. It quickly became a working experience. In a summer that was already insanely busy, and I don't regret doing it at all. In fact, I'm proud that I did it. But I will say, and maybe you can tell this in the writing, I don't know, as it neared the kind of final few weeks, I was pretty burnt out.
Yeah.
And so, literally, I mean, it was a week after the final that I actually got the final part published. But, and I wrote a lot about our trip, which we're going to talk about here in a few minutes, that we took. But, no, it's one of those things that, like, I'm going to think about trying to get published in a book form of some sort eventually just to do it. But it was a lot to do. My point being, it actually, so other than that, all of that attached to it, which I'm hoping when the other one comes around, I won't feel the need to do that. But I did feel that a reasoning that I could give for this is that it was the American World Cup. It was during the 250th anniversary of the country during the Trump administration, so there was a lot. I wrote a lot about, you know, the politics of immigration and how that factored in, and so I felt like this was the one to do if I was going to do one, and I've done it. So it's kind of like, okay, so you know, from now on, I don't plan on having some like Chelsea column that I regularly write about stuff. Like, you know, I felt like, oh, maybe if I care enough about this, I'd do that. And then I'm like, I just realized I kind of like writing about movies or my other writing projects in general. I basically was able to do no fiction writing or any other kind of like film writing during that time. So anyway, besides all that, it was a really great World Cup. Mm-hmm. You can speak to that as well because you watched a fair amount of it. Mm-hmm. That I think ultimately Spain won, and that was kind of what everybody expected and kind of what I expected. I did actually think it was going to be France at the very end and not, then it turned out that they were, you know, with Spain, so I could see that. But I thought it would be Spain against somebody other than Argentina. I did feel like Argentina was going to falter earlier on, and they showed a lot of potential of potential to do that, but then ultimately resolved to get there. And of course, there was all this like controversy about, they were helped along. I don't really believe most of that. I think that, like I said, they're like Kansas City Chiefs, and I hate both of these two organizations, so it's easy to talk about it this way. They're like the Kansas City Chiefs in the fact that they're just able to win games. They just somehow can get there then and do it.
Yeah.
They let the final slip away from them in that regard, and I think Spain was the better team anyway, but it was a pretty listless final. You know, they only scored once, and it was an extra time.
Everybody talked about, do we really need to even have a third-place game, which ended up being between England and France. Yeah. And it seemed especially useless once England had gotten like a 4-0 lead, but then obviously France came back and it looked like it was going to make it more of a game, and it ended up finishing close, you know.
Yeah, but they still didn't win. Right. The biggest thing, of course, for me is that Kylian Mbappe is now the highest scorer in World Cup history, which will very likely hold for a while because it's unlikely that Messi will play again, and he's right behind him.
Well, and what? Mbappe's likely has another 3, at least
2
probably,
maybe, or 3.
2 or 3
it just depends.
World Cup's ahead, which means he should extend the lead.
So, and this was also Ronaldo's last one, more than likely.
Neymar, right?
No, well, his is more just, he's younger than some of these other guys, but he just won't play again because he'll be 40 if he went again, I think, and he's just garbage. I mean, he basically barely got on the team anyway, and then was a sub for Brazil pretty much the whole time anyway. So yeah, he's done. I mean, but he scored 1 goal.
Yeah, there you go.
In a losing game against Norway. The Erling Haaland effect is a whole thing I don't really want to talk about, other than the fact that I don't mind him personally so much as the way people act over him and the teams he plays for. Ultimately, though, it was a really great World Cup. I thought the best game, and a lot of people agree, was Mexico-England.
That definitely went a long way towards me falling more in love with soccer.
Yeah.
That was just an incredible game, and as someone who was rooting for England this World Cup personally, that was a very exciting moment.
Yeah, and I was rooting for both of them. I preferred England at that point. Yeah. But yeah, that was... Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about sports. It's sometimes hard to justify to other people why it's great, especially soccer, if there's not a lot of score, because this is one of the few sports where there's very little scoring going on. Yeah. Baseball's kind of like that, but you still will get up a bunch of runs and hits and things that still count as these statistical importances, even if there's no score, you know?
Right.
Well, not in terms of the game, but, you know, in the long run. But yeah, so it's sometimes hard to justify that, but that was... You either have it where there's like no score, or it's very close with no score, or it's like this blowout, like basically what was happening in... really what happened with some of the... Germany against like the Ivory Coast, for example, or whatever, like, and then that, you know, but...
That ended up being, I guess, the biggest upset of the entire... tournament was that Germany lost.
That was very surprising to me. They lost in the first round.
They were projected to be one of the 32. Maybe top 3 to 5 teams.
Right, and it was one of the bigger, and it was the biggest tournament ever because they allowed more teams. I think everybody, literally all fans I've heard, have said that this has been widely praised for how big it was. That was partly a problem for me in the writing of it, obviously, but as far as, like, you know, eventually when I get to do it again and not have to care about paying attention to every single thing and not feeling like I have to watch every single game either, because that was kind of I didn't watch every single game, but I watched probably about 70% or more.
And I think, speaking for you, but also just for a lot of American soccer fans in general, it being... aligned with the times here, I think added to a lot of people, and during the summer months too, like planning days around when they were going to watch certain games, and it was very America friendly TV schedule, obviously, because of by virtue of when it was.
I preferred it when it was earlier in the day, just because that's easier. I mean, it would really be terrible if they did it where it was like somewhere in Asia, for example. Not, I mean, of course that'd be great for them, but like
as far as our
for
watching,
here, that would be a really bad, because that would just be totally the opposite, basically. And
I guess the Euros in European football is never usually a problem because
that's earlier here. And that when they do, the next World Cup will be basically in the Iberian Peninsula and Morocco area, basically around the Strait of Gibraltar. That will be like that, where it's easier to watch for us. So yeah, I mean, like, it worked really well with Qatar because that was even earlier.
Yeah.
There were some games that were shown at 5 o'clock in the morning here, which was tough on days that you had to work, but overall I wasn't as into soccer then either, so it didn't matter.
I know the primetime games that were happening here, they would always show, especially the European locales, and they were obviously always like...
They were late.
Past 12, 1 o'clock at night.
So yeah, that was frustrating for them. But anyway, that's all just to say that it was a great World Cup. I think it was a great World Cup. A successful World Cup. I only showed up once.
That was
once.
The big prediction going in about Trump's involvement in it, thankfully, was mostly mitigated.
The only real thing was the Balogun stuff. We haven't talked about the U.S. at all, which was a weird both success and utter failure, to where it kind of just evened out into not a whole lot. I think...
Well, didn't all three host countries go out around the 16 for one thing, too?
Yes, because all of them kind of barely won their games anyway. I remember Canada... It escapes me. I swear I think Canada played South Africa and barely beat them, which was horrific because South Africa played Mexico in that first game, and that was where they got 2 red cards. Terrible, the opening game.
Yeah.
Terrible game.
Yeah.
They were one of the worst teams I've ever seen. And even unfortunately, tragically, one of their players committed suicide after that. So, not necessarily because of that, I don't think, but anyway. So yeah, Canada barely beat them. Mexico beat. Off the top of my head, I don't remember, but then you can look it up. And then the United States beat Bosnia and Herzegovina, and then. Yeah, then Mexico lost to England. Canada, I don't remember who they lost to. And then the U.S. lost to Belgium.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can look at it there and see, but when it pops up, then I don't remember who. Canada lost to Morocco, is that what it is? That's what it looked like. Go back up.
Yep, I remember that now.
Yeah, and I remember watching that game. What about Mexico? Who'd they beat that first game?
Mexico beat Ecuador. And
okay.
Lost to
Yeah, I don't really remember the Mexico-Ecuador game very much. I know there was a point where they were like outside the Ecuador hotel, the fans like being real loud on purpose so that they wouldn't get sleep.
Yeah.
but anyway, yeah, that's all I remember about that game. So yeah, anyway, so the United States was a weird one where it was like they had a pretty easy group stage schedule with a lot of teams, even though they still lost to Turkey, which makes no sense to me. That was when we were in St. Augustine. I still don't know how that happened. And people were like, oh, well, they didn't play their starters. I'm like, well, Turkey's really bad, so that they still should have won. But then Bosnia wasn't too great. I think it was a situation where they got high on their own supply, and then they had to play a real, I hate to say it like this, a real team like Belgium.
That has the major international players.
Kevin De Bruyne, as Drury would say. But yeah, and that was, they just weren't going to win that game. And I mean, I feel like a lot of people knew that, but of course the big story was about how Balogun got the red card against, which he shouldn't have got anyway, by the way. I'm not just saying that.
That added a whole other complicated thing is the difference between what should have happened in the first place and the reversal that happened,
right,
where Infantino took away that red card. Basically, it got equated to Trump called him and said, hey, we should look into, getting rid of that, and that's what happened. So that led to a lot of, I think, conflicted feelings amongst American soccer fans versus outrage to the rest of the world.
Or that the rest of the world said, no, we do stuff like that all the time. Like, that's like more normal, honestly, to do.
Well, I think for like a whole event that didn't give as much opportunity to like criticize the country or its leadership as much as people thought in advance, that was a moment where people like took their moment and said, oh, we'll see, like, look how America's having this undue influence.
Right.
And so I think, again, as an American who was primarily rooting for another country, in my case England, and I know you're primarily rooting for France, like, we obviously wanted our own team to do well, even if that was not our primary. Like when I say we, the United States, like, team to do well, even as we're more primarily rooting for another one. But that just leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth, and I mean, kind of makes you feel conflicted about it.
Yeah, and as I started writing, I wrote in my introduction, and I actually got to see them play at the very end of May. And
against Senegal,
against Senegal, and they won. And so I got to see Balogun play, and he scored, I think, 2 goals in that. A brace, as they call it. And so I was already kind of plugged into the ether of what all of the American soccer team meant to certain people and didn't really mean to me. But then, I don't know, when they started winning, the lizard part of my brain started to be like, oh yeah, I'll kind of support that, but I was very skeptical going in that there could be any sort of interest in the American soccer team, just because I know that they've struggled for a long time. And also that it was in America, and it was just, and I'm not an anti-American person. I felt like I very, as Gore Vidal would say, I made my case very carefully in my writing about the 4th of July and what that means to me and all that. I wrote about in my that week that was, and how I think about being a relatively patriotic American, but not in the way that the right sees it, obviously. And that I felt like a lot of that was going to get wrapped up in the American soccer fandom. And ultimately, I feel like it kind of didn't. And so I felt more like, okay, I'll cheer for them, whatever. And then I knew that they would be beaten at some point. I just didn't know where, and I thought it would have happened before the point they got to. Mm-hmm. So that's its own success. But then the failure, falling on your face so terribly when you basically reversed a red card just for a player to play, and then to just get totally beaten mercilessly is pretty pathetic. So, I don't know. It'll be an interesting 4-year interim to see how that turns out. And I'll look at it with a lot more interest rather than hopefulness.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't very hopeful anyway, so the kind of success was kind of an added little bonus rather than like, oh, it had to fulfill this expectation, But
as we said, I think between the relative success of the American team and how that captured a lot of people's interest, along with the whole, even if people didn't go to a World Cup game, just all the scenes of fans going to major American cities and obviously taking on those sites and chants at baseball games. It just added a whole party atmosphere in the
Tartan
midst
Army
of,
marching to the Red Sox game and all that.
In the midst of America 250, that I think all of that made for the perfect storm for we keep reaching higher and higher watermarks for success of soccer in America.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's at its highest peak yet. Doesn't mean that it doesn't have higher to go, but I think we're enjoying a moment of a lot of people like, oh, maybe, I'm going to get a Premier League team or I'm going to start following. Now, how much of this sticks after the American football season starts and we get back into the swing of things, we'll see.
Well, one thing too, I'll say this definitively. I feel pretty guiltless saying this. I don't really feel a whole lot of fear over flack about it. I feel like this was a pretty successful diplomatic enterprise. Mm-hmm. In the sense that, I wrote about it a lot in my introductory stuff about I was expecting there could be riots, that there'd be a lot of anti-American sentiment even among Americans, and there was to a certain extent, but overall everything went pretty safely. There were very minor things that happened, but it felt like everybody kind of just ignored the current moment and kind of just enjoyed themselves, and
which I think is one of the major things sports can do.
And so I felt like overall that the divisions between countries weren't as stark as I thought it would be. The biggest thing was Iran, and that was very got a lot more tense when they finally had lost out. I think was even more apparent that they were very unhappy with their treatment. Although, and I'm not an Infantino fan, I felt like he fought for them more than people acted like he did, or at least seemed to, by appearances. I don't really know. But I do know that they were basically not allowed in the country very much other than the games. I know there was that one point they were at SoFi, and they played somebody, I can't remember, and that basically some officials came and said, you literally have to pack up and go within 30 minutes, just because they were from Iran, obviously. Also, there was the whole insanely stupid idea of having them and Egypt play at the Pride game in Seattle. Was just so that was not something that was we didn't plan that. It literally was planned well ahead of time that was going to be that fixture.
Yeah, and that puts everybody in a bad position.
And like I said, it's kind of ironic, and I'm not saying I even support the state of Iran or that I don't support, LGBT rights, LGBTQ rights, but when you're saying that you have the pride flag, but then, we don't allow your lion and sun flag, that kind of, I don't know, just inherently that becomes kind of questionable to me, and kind of whether I even care about that or not, it's a slap in the face, kind of intentionally. And so they kind of have a right to be angry leaving this, but at the same time, I feel like things could have been worse. I don't know. That doesn't make it good though. What happened to him either. But if that's the one major thing that came out of this, I guess it was successful. I don't know.
I guess moving forward, I guess this whole experience in some ways is a test balloon or a test case for what we're going to see with the Olympics in Los Angeles in 2 years, which is obviously
election year.
Another type of event. Then I know there's a lot of, is LA going to do this and that right? And usually we find across the board with the Olympics or the World Cup or these events, like when push comes to shove, usually they at least fake it till they make it on TV.
I think that the Olympic Committee is better at organizing this stuff than FIFA.
I feel FIFA gets a lot of flack. And I don't know to what extent it's deserved versus just because.
Well, partly because people don't pay as much attention to the Olympics as they do to soccer, but also I think the Olympic Committee has to be so intensely engaged because of how big it is.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot more events, and obviously, they just kind of have to make it work. So it's kind of one of those things where, by the necessity of its size, it has to be regulated to an inch of its life. I don't know about all this. I'm kind of just assuming. But overall, that's all to say. Yeah, good World Cup, but I'm glad that next time I'll be like, no, I'm not going to write about this, which the Euros is in 2 years, so that's going to be its own kind of thing again. But
I had a great time, again, as a more casual soccer fan, taking it in and watching it, and I definitely plan on watching more. And I say that just because once the fall schedule really gets cranked up and started, obviously American football is going to take more of my immediate interest, but I really plan on
during the school year. Also we're going to be getting to the end of baseball, and I feel like I haven't been able to watch as much of that as I wanted to, obviously. And so therefore, it's kind of funny that when basically the easiest way to say it, when Chelsea doesn't play great, I just stop. I'm like, okay, well, I'm whatever. That's kind of. Which also they play a lot of Sunday morning games more than anybody randomly, and so I don't get to see it because I'm at church, so it's whatever. But there's 40 games, so it'll be all right.
Yeah. Well, speaking of games, lots of big game, and you know how you start that game off on the right note.
It's all about the game
and how
it's
you
how
play
you eat it. Oh, okay, never mind.
Go ahead and put that bib on because it is time for the Blue Plate Special.
Hi, Audrey. Norma, can I have a cup of coffee, please? Sure.
I'll have what she's having.
Hey, who wanted a large pepperoni? Coming up!
Your primetime trailer expose is right here. You know how this looks, right? Or you see how this looks. Sorry. We're not actually going to do a deep dive on that trailer. I just figured I'd say
No,
that.
we'll be seeing the movie eventually because the trailer looks really good.
Yeah.
So
are you ready to make television history?
Are you ready to make podcasting history? So
you see how this looks.
Yeah.
Right?
We actually planned on doing a little mini bonus episode. In my mind, it was only going to be 40 minutes to an hour, maybe, talking about Blobfest, which I think we mentioned earlier in the year we were going to go to.
Yeah.
This is a little mini convention of sorts that basically happens in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, which is about an hour outside of Philadelphia, west of Philadelphia.
9.5 hours from here.
Yeah, on the more of the easternish side of the state of Pennsylvania. This is actually the town where on-location filming happened for the 1950s Blob, which, obviously I think we've been fans of for years. Yeah. And we only found out about this whole enterprise about 2 years ago when we were driving through this area. And we happened to pass by the Colonial Theater there in downtown Phoenixville. And we saw it and we were like, oh, wait a minute, is that the theater that's very famously in the Blob?
Mm-hmm.
Come to find out and looked it up, that there is a little convention there every year in the summer, in July. Levi and I went this last year and had I think, I can speak for both of us, say a really great time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about some of the stuff we did there. In general, I think the big centerpiece of the entire weekend our screenings on Friday night and Saturday night. We went to the Friday night screening of the Blob itself, and it's set up as this. And again, the Colonial Theater, this beautiful historic theater in downtown Phoenixville. It's one of those you feel like you're stepping back in time a little bit as far as like these kind of local theaters that have these beautiful marquees outside in a downtown area. Now, again, there's a screening on Friday night, which is the one we went to, and then they do another on Saturday, where it's an immersive screening of the 50s Blob movie. They have titles throughout the movie where they want you to yell or scream certain things.
Which were slightly off, by the way. Which, whatever.
Yeah.
We're going to mostly praise the Blobfest people here, but I do have some minor complaints. Mostly with just this specific event of it, which... because, they do that. I mean, it's very much like Rocky Horror Picture Show kind of crap, where they do the whole, like...
shadow casting.
Well, they didn't do that,
thing,
but
nowadays,
which is hilarious. But, I'm sorry. I'm just going to go ahead and say it, because I support a lot of stupid crap.
Yeah.
The Rocky Horror Picture Show fandom just makes no sense to me. Let me say I get that it's a kind of a lightning rod for a lot of alternative culture, whether it be LGBT and whatever, and that's cool, fine, whatever. But I'm just like, I find the whole experience kind of goofy. But I haven't seen the movie, so I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where it's like, you gotta go see it for the first time like that, and you have to do the virgin dance. It's like, all I have to do is press play on the TV if I want to, which I don't. Yeah. So, but anyway, so this was kind of like that. Sorry, I just dropped a massive bomb, and I'm just gonna walk away.
And so, it's this immersive screening, you're yelling or saying stuff throughout. There's even a few times where there's ushers that are on the sides where they shot out some smoke or something.
Or water or something,
is like making immersive. The big moment is at the end of the movie, and it is very kind of surreal when you're like, this is only the second time this has happened to me, where you're like watching a movie in the theater where the movie itself was shot. And the other time that happened for me was when I saw The Conjuring years ago in UNC Wilmington. So there's literally like this weird mirroring feeling that happens where you're like watching the outside of the movie theater and then the actual inside where you're sitting.
Yeah.
When the Blob finally makes its way into that screening room in the movie, they run out into the street. Well, you reenact that as seeing the Blob.
So they tell you, okay, when the run thing goes, you run out, and so we did that. Very surprised at how successful that was in terms of like people not getting hurt.
Yes,
because I
think that's the biggest thing that happens. Make sure nobody gets hurt.
Yeah, and so we all just kind of ran.
And it felt surreal. I don't know if this is how you felt too. Is like when you run out of the theater and you see all these people are like waiting to record or take pictures of it, and you feel like you're weirdly like a celebrity or something for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
It's just like it's overwhelmed.
Yeah, because we're in a bunch of videos somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, you can maybe even find it, but it's funny because we were dressed up a little bit as like 1950s ish.
Yeah, they want you to dress up in costumes.
But anyway, we basically did something real basic.
Yeah.
But so we ran out and so that was cool, but at the same time, they were like, oh, but you can't come back in and see the rest of the movie because there's like 15 minutes left. And we've seen the movie quite a few times. But so that evening when we were done with everything, we went back and just finished it on HBO Max real quick. But that's the only thing I'm like, and they're like, if you want to finish it, you can come tomorrow morning. We're gonna be showing the movie again. I'm like, you're not getting another effing cent out of me.
Well,
but
so it's like it's a non-immersive screening.
Yeah, that one I guess.
And then they also have some Spanish language screenings of the movie too. I noticed.
Know that.
Yeah, and I thought that was cool.
Okay. Yeah.
Feature. So then they almost have like it's like a mass of people outside the theater. We took some pictures with this guy who's had a really amazing, impressive, tall alien costume that he was in.
There were a couple aliens.
And we took a picture with him, and right before I was, oh, nice costume, and he said, "What costume?" And it was kind of funny.
Funny.
So that was that's like the centerpiece of
Yeah.
the weekend, and then they have another one of those on Saturday night.
Yeah.
We didn't do that one.
And we went to the Blob Ball very briefly that evening, and nothing against that, but we weren't going to dance, so we just were like, okay.
Yeah,
there were
checked
some
it
people
out.
in there, though, that were freaking,
Yeah.
they were getting down.
Yeah,
I was like,
this is their chance to let their
okay.
freak flag fly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so ultimately, yeah, and then we had to walk a little ways to get an Uber.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And so then the next morning, they have like all these vendors set up kind of on that main street in Phoenixville, or downtown Main Street, whatever. And so we walked that, and you got to meet the one of the guys behind the newest season of Mystery Science Theater 3000, newest iterations of that.
Yeah,
He had a little booth.
David Buchholz, I think's how you say it. Yeah, and I talked with him for a little while. I bought one of his books. And so, yeah, we looked around there for a while. But actually, before that, we went to see The Abominable Dr. Phibes.
Oh, I couldn't remember the timeline of that. Okay, yeah.
On 35mm, which was really cool to see that.
Yeah.
Like that.
Now, you had seen that before. I had
Yeah,
not.
it's been probably about a decade ago. I used to have the DVD. I might still have it, but used to have the DVD. I tried selling it one time. I don't think I ever did, but I have the DVD, and it also has the sequel with it, which I haven't seen.
Yeah.
One of those movies that's like not that great, but it was made kind of in those like those kind of late 60s, early 70s British horror movie kind of like Fu Manchu-esque kind of nonsense where it's like the one guy is killing all these people in these insane ways. Can he be stopped? And it's like, and they have the cops looking for him, and it's just very like, the cop stuff's very like, okay, like, I don't really care, you know.
And obviously, it's Vincent Price. I don't know if we said this or not. Is the lead,
right?
Is the
So,
titular
and he
Dr.
doesn't
Phibes.
talk a whole lot, so it's one of those things where he's in it, but he's not like himself in a big way.
Yeah, it was, and I was wanting to see if officially it was officially an AIP movie.
Yeah,
which
it was. Yeah,
it was definitely in that mode.
Yeah, so it is a good movie.
I had not seen it. I really liked it. I thought it was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
had a I love like a goofy kind of sometimes mad scientist story. So that was right up my alley. And seeing it in 35mm, I mean, we talk about these theatrical experiences on celluloid here or there. You know, for us, they're harder to come by where we live. So
Except for when we were children and we didn't know any different. You know?
Well, that's the irony.
Right.
But like when you see it now, it just feels very special that we're able to see it. And also with his daughter, who was also there and introduced the movie, and I think was there afterwards.
That was interesting to hear her talk about that. Yes, because she kind of was. That was another you mentioned about weird immersive, you know, or weird experiences where you're like, there with something in some way. It was weird to be, there for the Blob. In that way, it was kind of like watching I'm not bringing this up to be like, oh, this happened to me one time, but just to mention it again because this happened to me. Is that when I saw The Shining with Vivian Kubrick wasn't there then. She came to the Q&A afterwards, but with Garrett Browning and Joe Dutton. Joe Dutton's actually passed away now, but that it was weird to see with Garrett Browning like that, or is it Garrett Brown? I can't ever remember what his name is. I feel like I always say it's either Gareth Browning or Garrett Brown or Garrett. Anyway, the guy who created Steadicam.
Garrett Brown.
Okay, Garrett Brown. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, that he was there, and so it was weird to see some of the famous like Steadicam shots in that movie, and he just like sitting right over there, just probably watching it like haven't seen it a million times, like kind of like it's all right, I guess, whatever. So that was cool. Yeah. But yeah, that was kind of the closest thing I could think of to the Blob thing was like not the location but the person. Right. And so which I mean, you know, with Vincent Price's daughter being there,
and she looked a lot like him physically.
Right. She wasn't in the movie, so
But she talked a little bit just about him being a dad, and it was really just cool the way to kind of put. And it should be said, like, this particular year of Blobfest had a like circus carnival theme to it. I don't know exactly how Abominable Dr. Phibes fits into that exactly, but
I'm trying to think. I mean, didn't you think it was strange they didn't like clap for him in the movie, but then they clapped for when he took his mask off and it was the like skeleton face underneath?
Yeah,
and everybody clapped, and I was like, "You're clapping for that, but you didn't clap for him." I don't know.
Yeah,
weird.
The last movie we saw there was Big Top Pee-wee, which was kind of a minorly big moment for me because, of course, we grew up watching a ton of Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Some of the show, Levi had seen Big Top Pee-wee some years back. I never had, so it was the first time I was able to check that off the list. This one obviously fit more with the carnival atmosphere and vibe. You know, I respect that they chose to show this movie over even Pee-wee's Big Adventure, because as much as we love that movie and it's great, like, that's of course going to be the go-to where people would expect to have.
Well, I think they had showed that a couple years ago too. Yeah. And so you could still get away with doing that because the movie still has a carnival atmosphere to it anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one was more in that immediately in that.
And I think too, within the repertory scene, the chances of seeing this movie on the big screen are just so slim compared to the first one. So,
which is good.
Yeah,
because it's not a good movie.
So it was. Yeah. There was I know this had a reputation for not being all that good, and it certainly lived up to the hype in that way. Obviously,
there were a couple moments that made me laugh pretty genuinely, but they were mostly early on.
Yeah,
and then I was like, you know, and then Dustin Diamond was in it at the end, and I was like, no.
Yeah, that added a screeched awkwardness to it. But look it up on the Skull Chromebook. Yeah. See what happens. No, I'm just kidding. But try it out and see what happens. Obviously Tim Burton didn't do Big Top Pee-wee, which I think we would agree was a great feature film for him to start out on. Yeah. That is not exactly the finished version, obviously, of Tim Burton that we would see, but was like just very early, youthful version before he quickly became the director that we all recognize him as. But his like spark added a lot, obviously, to the realization of that first movie, which is why I think it makes it part of so special.
Well, also the problem with that too is that with Pee-wee's Big Adventure, you had him directing it of Tim Burton, and then Paul Rubens and
Phil
Hartman and Michael Varhol, don't forget, writing it. And so it was like a coalescing of a lot of ideas.
The story is also very simplistic in a good way, where you can hang on all these great scenes and characters and set pieces of that first movie of Pee-wee's trying to get his bite back. There's a very clear narrative through line.
Right, and also it's...
the second one.
That's in it, and I mean, this is obviously overblown because it's not about the same things, but it is a very, very light remake of Bicycle Thieves, which in and of itself is one of the best movies ever made by Vittorio De Sica. Just love saying that name, so I can say it. But obviously that, you know, it's more like inspired by, like, based on an idea by Vittorio De Sica. It's kind of, like a man-child, low-stakes version of Bicycle Thieves, because Bicycle Thieves is actually a pretty high-stakes movie as far as what it's about, and, you know, anyway, that's just to say that, like, it's already toying with a lot of definitive ideas.
Yeah.
Whereas this one's like, oh, the Pee-wee character's at a carnival, and it's like that blows onto his farm that he owns all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And I think that's another problem with the movie. There's a lot of problems with Big Top Pee-wee, but I think the biggest one is that the location, it's weird. It's like the Pee-wee's Big Adventure, he both is a product of his environment, and his environment is a product of him in a certain sense, like, because it's clear that this whole world is wacky and insane and weird, but also that he kind of makes it more of that. Whereas this one, it's like, I mean, the wackiest thing about his entire farm is that he has a talking pig and a hot dog tree. I mean, other than that, like, there's nothing there that is of interest. It just looks like a farm, and so, because that's one of the funniest things in the first movie is that you see the inside of his house, and then there's that, it makes me laugh every time, and I've seen it, it's my favorite movie because I've seen it a million times. The establishing shot outside his house when he's walking out and you first see his front yard and just how ridiculous it looks. It just is a great laugh line because you think, oh, of course, the outside of his house would look weird, but you don't really think about it until there's no moments like that in this movie where there's no like surprise to anything that happens or no ingenuity, and the problem is that then the freaks have to come to him. Yeah. Rather than he himself is a freak, and he, and all these other people are freaks. Yeah. So, I mean, he's a freak 8 days of the week, But like,
I think seeing this movie for me clarified like just how delicate that character is. That he can be amazing in the right context, but if you just twist the dials a little bit this way or that way, it's like that magic starts to be lost a little bit.
Well, he wasn't very funny in it either, and we'll talk about
and kind of mean-spirited and just like...
And we can talk about that in a second, about why we think that might be as far as the sexuality of the movie, but he's just so effortlessly funny in the first one. I mean, it's like it's just second to second, he's doing something all the time. And it's like, and then also there's the whole thing about him going into town, and the people there hate him, but you're thinking, well, he's not really acting that insane. Yeah. That's almost like banking on our knowledge of the Pee-wee character, rather than him actually doing it, which is terrible screenwriting and terrible acting on that part. To just assume, oh, well, Pee-wee is like, well, maybe I don't. Why is he so hated? He's making a hot dog tree. Yeah. Like, now they don't know that. Yeah. But, like, so then the circus people turn up, and none of that is ever interesting other than the fact that you get Chris Christopherson,
who we love,
to have dialogue with Pee-wee Herman, and he's like, Pee-wee.
Yeah.
That's the damnedest thing I've ever seen. Basically,
it was kind of surreal where you're watching the screen.
And I've seen a crocodile jump off a trampoline into a snake pit. Like,
doesn't it sound like a dream your cinephile friend would have? I was having this dream the other day where it's like it was a Pee-wee sequel, like Chris Christopherson was in it, and you're just like, what? How did that? And it's like, no, that actually did happen.
And it's like, was he the real Lloyd Fletcher riding volcano moment? Who's like, Pee-wee, you've got, and then see, now that would have been a better sequel. Okay, here, listen to this. Okay, so years later, Pee-wee's there. Chris Christopherson shows up, and he's like, I'm the guy who you impersonated in that bull riding contest that you became the world record in. That's one of my favorite details that nobody ever knows. I'm going to make a shirt of this. Is that Pee-wee Herman won the bull riding world record under another man's name, and like it's just kind of like, okay, like, and so I don't know. I just think it's funny that never gets talked about. So you make a sequel where he shows up and he's like, I want my record back. Like, he's like, well, you have the record. Like,
do like a like Pee-wee set in a western.
You basically
like
do the movie you were already doing there in a little bit of a different way. But whatever.
I also want to point out that like a very young Benicio del Toro
as
is
a
like
werewolf,
he's basically like
the man dog or whatever they call him. What does it say he is?
Duke. It just says
Duke the dog.
Yeah.
We were talking about that would have made a great trailer. That part where they're showing all the like people in the zoo. Of different things, and then Pee-wee's at the end, and he's just looking like himself. That would have been a great trailer, but they probably didn't do it. But the big thing that this movie gets talked about, and something that was basically the only thing that was talked about in the Pee-wee as himself documentary, is the kind of sexuality and the sexual politics of the movie, which is
not something I even expected I would be thinking about, and I've still yet to see that documentary. I really want to. I know Levi liked it a lot and talked about it on our end of the year best of episode. First off, do you think this movie is now just only it's like interest amongst fans is probably going to go up by virtue of that documentary.
Yes,
existing
because
and now
it's such an
casting
empty
this
vessel.
Context.
I mean, yeah, because it's such an empty vessel anyway. I mean, that's the only thing that is really of interest. And I mean, I think everybody, as a child, I didn't think anything about it personally. But I think everybody kind of knows instinctively that Pee-wee's gay.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't take very hard to, figure that out.
Yeah.
That documentary talks a lot about that, and obviously, and him talking about how basically he himself saying it. I mean, Pee-wee asked himself the name, saying that he thought his career was more important than his sexuality, either publicly or privately. Honestly, and so therefore he felt this weird need. I don't remember exactly what all the details of this were. If it was as much him, I think it was kind of a him thing, that he felt the need to kind of put that out there of him as a romantic person or him as just a straight
being
person
involved in these heterosexual
to kind of like put a smoke screen over some of that. You said it perfectly. It's really hard to watch, honestly, and I'll let you talk a little more about that.
Yeah, so I've not even seen this documentary yet, so I didn't even really know that was a conversation point exactly about this movie, but there's a lack of enthusiasm, and this is getting into really like aesthetic film theory stuff that's like can get kind of sounding esoteric, but there's a certain melancholy to seeing a queer performer, a gay performer, have to have scenes with like heterosexual romance scenes with actresses that he clearly is not interested in.
Yeah.
I can pull up my Letterboxd review.
Yeah, because you wrote very well about it.
Just to exactly spell out what I'm saying here, because there's a weird dissonance that's happening when that happens. I'll just read from the second paragraph of my review here. On a more somber and tragic note, knowing what I know now of creator and star Paul Rubens' own personal life and sexuality was actually filled with a sudden and unexpected sadness every instance where he was forced to romance not only one but two potential female love interests. I know I'm bringing things to the movie that aren't necessarily there explicitly, but seeing Rubens' expression in close-up being openly bored and nonplussed by the demands of the love triangle story played to me like a desperate cry for help to achieve something short of authenticity that a movie as dumb and uninteresting as this would have ever allowed him to achieve. As much as movies can be hope chests for imagination, they can also just as easily be melancholic chambers of misery and pain. Frankly, I'm tearing up thinking about this and the larger arc of Rubens' life as I write it. I hope he knew his art largely served as an inspiration for anyone who's ever felt othered or unwanted. And by the way, this is not something that I go into this movie expecting to even think about or see or recognize. But I guess when there's other few interesting things going on in the movie, I can't help but think about that.
Well, what's weird is that becomes the movie. It's funny you say he's disinterested in that, but I think you're right by saying this. But then this points to even the bigger problem. You had said that he was disinterested in that part of the movie, but what's funny is that becomes the movie.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, what's the whole thing? Mm-hmm. Because, there's very little, honestly, carnival shenanigans compared to what you would think there would be.
Right.
And circus stuff, like, they all kind of wait for the end.
I think the whole thing feels
This movie had such a non-ending, by the way. It was just hilarious. But
two or three types of stories that were just bandied around like a boardroom meeting as far as, so what about this? So what about that? And it just never committed to one in a way that was satisfying.
Although, strangely, I think it was one of those things where he had a little more control over the writing even than we would think.
Yeah.
Which makes it even weirder,
but
because it feels like it's...
It didn't have that, collaboration with Phil Hartman quality that the first one had.
And Tim Burton even, just somebody that's directing it that knows what the hell they're doing. Because this movie looks very personal.
Well, also, too, I think, isn't one going to be inherently more interesting and dynamic because it's a road movie, so you're seeing all these different new places. This one's kind of static by comparison. It's like he's at a carnival.
It comes to his house
in the middle of a country environment, rural environment where there's nothing else really going on. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just inherently not going to be as memorable.
Right, and well, notably
because also even even though it's like his playhouse is the only place you really see him in the show, it's so imaginative and over the top.
Well, and that was more like his
stage show.
Right. I mean, because honestly, his movies are more of the like standalone than his other stuff is. Because they're, but that's what I was going to say, is this was when the show was going on. So he was clearly more interested in that too than this, and I don't blame him. Because that's better than this is.
Well, anyways, we talked way more about that than we did Abominable Dr. Phibes, which is a movie we actually like more. But this one does have some little interesting little threads to pull at that are part of a larger story with him. So, anyways,
I just keep thinking about that part where he goes to eat with his fiance at the beginning of the movie. And the tone deafness of like him jumping on her is so weird.
Yeah.
And like I kind of laughed, but then it happened again, and I was like, and there's just literal like almost audio silence in the movie when it happens. And it's very like, it's just very like if you could literally encapsulate the movie into one moment, that's just like what is happening and why am I watching it? Basically like, but not in an interesting way. So, yeah.
So, Big Top Pee-wee. There it is.
I mean, the movie, I don't, like, hate it, but it is really quite terrible in a lot of ways.
I think, too, just because that first one is such a unmitigated joy. And
it's weird. I don't feel a loss for the movie or for me so much as I do for him, but then in the same sense, I mean, he pretty much lived the rest of his life doing whatever anyway, so I guess it didn't really matter. But, I don't know.
He still later was in Dunstan Checks In, don't forget, looking for Pongo Pygmies.
And Blow.
Yeah.
And Matilda.
I've still not seen that Pee-wee's Holiday. Is that the name of the
Pee-wee's Big Holiday?
Big
no,
Holiday,
I haven't either.
It's on Netflix.
I know a lot of like purists have said that one is good, but I don't know.
Yeah,
so I'll watch it eventually.
We were also supposed to see
Killer Clowns from
Outer Space, but due to the just scheduling stuff, I won't bore you with, we had to get up very early the next day. We ended up not seeing that. And ultimately, that was the right decision, but I'm still deep down like, I wish that was also going to be in 35mm, but didn't get a chance to. Just overall thoughts and impressions about what the whole Blobfest experience was for you, Levi. Like,
well, it was great. I mean, it was my favorite thing of the trip, personally.
Yeah.
And I mean, the whole trip was good, but yeah, that was really cool. And I mean, it was kind of. We won't go into this and talk about this forever, but we ran into James Rolfe in a bookstore. The reason I bring this up is because he's the way that I originally ever heard about it. Who's the Angry Video Game Nerd, if you don't
also
know
Cinemassacre.
And Cinemassacre, all that stuff. And so...
he's a big figure for you as far as your interest in the internet.
If I had to, I mean, I don't
online.
follow his stuff as much as I used to, but I still do here and there. But he's by far like my favorite internet personality that I've ever cared anything about. And so no, we didn't talk to him because we're those kind of people who don't want to bother people. A rare breed, I guess.
It was like in the middle of a pretty busy bookstore,
right?
When we saw
and his family was with him, and so we were just like whatever. So James Rolfe, who will never listen to this, thanks for letting. Well, it was just weird. Well, thanks for the memories, as our old friend the Riddler would say. But no, just I appreciated the idea that like somebody who had mentioned, this Blobfest thing exists. I'm like, okay, I'll go to that someday, and then to go and they're actually
and literally
there,
a day or so before we had been joking, what if we were going to run into him, and we actually did
barely. So yeah, because I was like looking at books, and Kyle walked up to me, he's like, I swear to God, that's James Rolfe over there. I was like, no way.
And he literally was wearing like a
Universal Monster shirt or something.
So
it was like
that added to me just thinking it was him.
Because he lives in Pennsylvania area somewhere, so
I'm
near the New Jersey border.
Vaguely curious to go back to this, depending on what the slate or theme of movies they do in the future are. And I've talked about it with my wife too. It's something that
she'd like that.
We might go to, so we'll see. But anyways, had a lot of fun. It was kind of exactly in a good way what I thought it was going to be as far as checking the boxes in my head, and yeah, I had a lot of fun. I'd highly recommend checking it out. Next year, right after we did this, it was on this same trip, we then made a special trip to the western end, or more of the western end of the state of Pennsylvania, Monroeville, which is just outside of Pittsburgh, where Dawn of the Dead, the 1978 zombie movie classic, was shot at. And we had read a New York Times article a few weeks ago, a month plus ago, about the possibility that this place might actually close because
the mall area.
itself, because it had been bought out by
Walmart,
I believe, and they're going to either change it up, so in a massive way, or just outright tear it down and rebuild. So there was just we realized we're going to be up in this general area. Why not try to make a special trip to go see the mall from Dawn of the Dead, which is obviously one of our favorite movies, period, much less zombie movies or horror movies. And so we went to go see the mall, which was an interesting experience. They had a little mini museum, which I loved how homemade and specific it felt, to that area. The mall itself is some businesses are doing just fine, others were closed.
The biggest one was we saw that H&M was closed, and that was basically where the bottom of the original JCPenney that's in the movie.
Yeah, and Levi did a great job trying to match up and figure out where different places in the mall were from the movie, and I think you looked some online about some stuff, but then
it took a little time to figure out because it looks the same, but it doesn't look the same. It's weird. And
that obviously adds, and this is what I felt the New York Times article was about too. There, you can't help but feel the kismet, the connection between what happened in that movie and what the state of the mall culture in general now is all across the United States, much less the specific mall where this zombie apocalypse was famously shot. And that created the whole zombies in the mall aesthetic that is, I feel been a pretty big part of zombie fiction, which is a funny word to say.
No, it's real.
But
right.
The understanding
the
of the oeuvre of the literary notion of a zombie.
Right.
What did you take from this experience and seeing that place?
Well, I had watched the movie. I mean, I've seen the movie a million times, but I rewatched it. I actually watched Night of the Living Dead earlier that day, and then I watched that in the afternoon. Just just to rewatch it and kind of see the mall again and think about it a little bit. And I finally decided to give the movie 5 stars. I wanted to write a review about it, but the World Cup was going on, and so I was like, I'm not writing a single effing word, basically, about anything. And so, so I was rewatching it, and just, I don't know, I've started to try to look at certain movies in certain lenses, and if you look at that movie as purely what it is, which is an independent, essentially epic in scope, is one of the most well-made movies ever.
Certainly
made.
Independent movies,
I mean, and so if you look at it purely from that perspective, I'm not saying it's a perfect movie, but it's pretty flawless. And just following it moment to moment is just one of the great cinematic virtues, frankly. And there's not a lot of great 5-star horror movies, so that's one of them. To go and actually be there was really weird. And weird in the sense that I think the weirdest thing is that the thing I was looking for the most is what we found by accident and didn't know until the end that's what it was the main hallway that they go between the their upstairs area where they live and the rest of the mall. And we literally were like, let's find the bathroom first, and went in there and literally walked. That was that hallway, and we
they had
really
these
realized
cool vintage Star Wars I guess they were sale
they were sales
advertisements
posters for the mall, and one of them was a Star Wars one. There was a bunch of other ones too, but so we were kind of okay, whatever, because they don't have the same stuff there. I mean, this was over 50 years ago, or almost 50 years ago. It would basically be about 50 years ago when it was
just
made,
as the mall phenomenon was starting to take off throughout the country. Yeah,
and that's the weird thing when you look at the building itself, and it's been remodeled here and there. It's very 1970s aspects of it that you can tell have remained.
And again, just to clarify, Monroeville, like I said, it's like a suburb of Pittsburgh, and
and it was seen as one of the biggest.
Romero is seen as like a Pittsburgh icon,
and that was seen as one of the biggest malls in the United States at that time. In the world, even, I guess, at that time. But now it's not that special compared to other ones you'd see. But
especially considering how quote unquote healthy it is, it's obviously not quite as dead as the article I read made it seem like it was, but it's clearly struggling like a lot of other places too.
But and so like even the Mall of America isn't even as big as it used to be. Probably there's probably other malls that are bigger. I don't know. But
I don't know.
There's that one in L.A. that's really big. I know that was in Jackie Brown.
Yeah, I mean the one in Charlotte is pretty big for us. Yeah, it's not too far from here. Also, Raleigh has a massive one.
Greensboro has a pretty big one too. There where the Four Seasons is.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's all just to say that we walked around and saw certain things. And I was able to figure out, well, this used to be here in this area and this, different stuff. And so there's whole stuff that wasn't there at all anymore, like the ice skating rink wasn't there. I'm not actually sure where exactly that was. We never could really figure that out exactly. One thing that was never there at all that you might not have known, the gun store in the movie was not at all. They had to make that somewhere else. The biggest thing I would have really loved to have done is if they would have had it open where, well, I forgot to mention, they now have a movie theater in the top of the JCPenney's where the JCPenney's used to be. There's another JCPenney's over at the end, and I was really looking at it, and it didn't look right. And I was kind of thinking, a lot of people probably think this is that one. But I kept looking at it, and I was like, it just doesn't look like that.
Yeah.
And finally figured out, actually there was one over here, and I think that one used to be the Gimbals one, maybe that was in. But anyway, all this doesn't matter. But it's just one of those things that's cool to go see and be able to be a part of having seen it, because I mean it's like I was saying, I've said this a million times, it really burns me up. It's like one of my most said things I've realized, that we can no longer go to Candlestick Park, which is the final place that the Beatles ever played a public concert.
Yeah.
And that's just not possible anymore because it's destroyed. And that's why I was saying we might ought to go to this, because even if Walmart were to buy it and they didn't do a whole lot to it, it still wouldn't be the same, but especially if they destroy it, which is very likely if that's what they're going to do, that just won't exist.
Yeah.
And so therefore it was its own kind of pilgrimage. What was also weird was that the route that we took from Phoenixville to there was vaguely on, the turnpike, Pennsylvania Turnpike.
Yeah. Was
vaguely the same that the helicopter took in the movie. Which is kind of interesting to think about because they passed through Harrisburg.
Yeah.
But we talked to the guy, and he was very vague about it. The guy that was in the museum was the clerk there. We said, we heard they're going to close it down. He said, well, we don't really know yet, or we're not sure yet. So he seemed, I don't know what that even means.
Yeah.
It might be that somebody comes in and tries to help, try to save it. But from what I understood, I thought it was pretty clear that Walmart had just bought it.
Yeah.
And that they were telling people to vacate by April, this coming April. So that's one of those things where it seemed like, to me, it's more of a done deal than that guy acted like, but I don't know.
Yeah, we're not there living and seeing all the specific news about it.
Yeah, so anyways,
like, we actually had to go a little bit out of our way to do this, but I think we very much are glad we did, and it was like, check the box that, if we never get to come back to that place again, we'll always be able to say that we visited. Had a Romero statue, which I saluted and took some pictures of. And it
was there near where the original clock tower used to be in the movie, so that area. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think, obviously for the longest time, Romero has been seen as this, like, Pittsburgh indie film icon that has continued. And I was thinking as we were going through here, something like The Dark Knight Rises shot in Pittsburgh proper, that has to by far be the biggest, I guess, movie that's ever shot in Pittsburgh. But obviously, like, quintessential Pennsylvania filmmaker with Romero, he's always going to be most well-known product of that. And also, this just fit thematically with what we were doing going to the Blobfest, you know. It just felt like who knew that Pennsylvania was this big, like, genre movie hub in the way that I kind of, before I had
Pennsylvania has a lot of culture going on. I mean, so...
For sure. So check that out while they're still open. Recommend you do. We don't have to talk too much about it.
I mean, heck, fly in.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
why not? Like, I wouldn't, but...
Teacher symposium we went to in Gettysburg. We've talked about going to these before.
Yeah.
You went to one 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I did that one, and then one
You
year
did one
before,
before that,
and we didn't go last year. This year we did one all about the Cold War with Timothy Naftali, who's a pretty widely known historian who's on CNN a lot as one of their presidential historian experts, and he's headed the Nixon Presidential Library in the past, has an incredibly rich resume. Like, he was talking about all the things he's done and been a part of at the beginning.
Yeah, I feel like I learned a lot
overwhelming.
more about him in the book talk, especially. He was talking about that Khrushchev book he wrote.
Yeah.
And he was talking about basically all the access that he was able to get to all these Soviet records that no American had ever had access to.
Yeah.
Which he co-wrote with that other gentleman, I can't remember his name, who's passed away now, who's Russian.
Yeah, Russian guy.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, he feels like a true authority on the Cold War era, obviously, and that was a lot of fun. And he, you know, certain things he talked about, like, definitely backed up my own knowledge and assumptions. A few other things naturally challenged him a little bit, and that's what's great about those. So, you know, not very movie-centric stuff going on there, but we had a great time.
Yeah.
Highly enjoyed that.
Right. Yeah, we the only major
that was
thing
ended up being the longest part of our trip.
Right. I mean, that was
obviously.
the main reason we went anyway. But yeah, one other thing that was kind of cool, other than just being there again and getting to hang out with all these people, that it's kind of a little community of people. You kind of like remember each other.
Yeah.
That we actually got to sit and eat with Hassan Jeffries at one point, and talk about the World Cup, and then we kind of realized later, wait, that's like Hakeem Jeffries' brother, and, like, the senator, and so, or congressman, congressman, sorry, representative. So yeah, we were kind of like, oh, okay, well, cool. I mean, I knew in the moment that he was one of the speakers, and so yeah, that was kind of cool to get to talk with some people about sports, because when we did it before, when I did it my first time, me and you went, was the sports stuff. So we talked about sports the whole time then. Yeah. So that was kind of a nice little, like, oh, by the way, let's talk about sports for a little while. But
Seth Tannenbaum, who did the first one we went to, when we went to 2 years ago, he was doing the same program again while we were there. So saw him from afar.
Yeah, never did find his book.
Yeah,
that's a whole. You ever want to ask us about that personally? We can talk about why we think that's funny. But
speaking of books, the Odyssey,
the original book, other than the Bible,
one of the good books. So you know,
I'm sorry, I have to say this. Yeah. I've never said this out loud. Okay, I have a lot of thoughts on it.
New take.
Okay, you ever notice how people say that Hinduism is the oldest religion?
Yeah,
I'm going to be real Judeo-Christian here, okay? But, like, okay, why is that? Well, they say it's because it has the oldest, like, written record or whatever. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, but don't you also think it's interesting that, like, if we believe what the Torah says, which I do pretty much, is that was all oral tradition before it was written down. Mm-hmm. So it's like, that doesn't really count in Hinduism's favor to me. I'm saying that even from just a historical perspective, not even from even believing that Judaism is the original religion, which I do believe personally, but that I'm like, well, that's not really exactly accurate, but whatever. Anyway, just gonna put that out there.
Something to think about.
The Odyssey. You know, let's talk about the mother effing Odyssey. Okay,
it's about time somebody did. It goes without saying, this was the movie-going event of the year, and we knew that going in, and so and we had like a lot of expectations going in and out of it. It's already passed $1 billion in grosses.
Oh, did it officially? I didn't know that.
A day or two ago, it finally passed $1
I
billion.
know that it was at $7 million when I last looked in.
And
or
it's
$700 million. It made $7 million.
So I think
night,
the only
probably.
two now ahead of it, as far as in Nolan's own career, are The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, which it'll probably at least pass.
So it's made
one
more
of
than
those.
Oppenheimer by now.
Yes,
because Oppenheimer never hit
it
$1
didn't
billion.
quite hit $1 billion.
It was like
900 plus.
Yeah.
So it was close.
Right.
This has already eclipsed that.
Well, this was a weird movie because honestly, I mean, going into it, we keep wondering, okay, what's the next Christopher Nolan thing?
Yeah.
We've really been wondering this ultimately since, especially since The Dark Knight Rises, honestly, being done.
Yeah.
And Interstellar. And then after that, it was kind of like, okay, what's he going to do next? Became an even more of a question. Dunkirk
for every
was,
subsequent project, yeah.
So Dunkirk was Dunkirk, and that was great. And we had a lot of weird... I know we went into that one kind of like, I don't know about that. And also the fact that it was way shorter. It was like an hour and 40-some minutes rather than like a 3-hour movie.
Yeah.
We were like, okay,
that was a
weird.
huge vibe shift for him because most of his movies are just climbing up the...
And then Tenet happened, and that one doesn't even really count because it was a COVID movie, but that movie also wasn't really that good.
But then has
whatever.
a very rich fandom online of people think
strange.
that's one of his best movies.
And then after that, he, of course, fired back massively with Oppenheimer, which was a weird one anyway because it's kind of like, okay, you're doing a biopic and it's a historical, drama, a biopic movie. And it was like, okay, what's he gonna do there? And then obviously that was great in a different way.
Obviously, it's always going to be connected to Barbenheimer and Barbie and the dual release of that.
And then with this, it felt like, okay, why is he doing that? Like,
I think one of the most interesting things about why this movie exists is he's said a few times that when he was thinking about his next movie, he was thinking about what are current gaps in like modern movies of things that are not quite getting made or something that's never been made in the way that it should have been made or intended to, and he's basically said that he looked and realized that the Odyssey, which is so influential on not only his work but a great much of the Western canon writ large, much less just cinema but even all other forms of art, the Odyssey is one of those touchstones. That he basically realized there's not been a direct adaptation of this work before. There's been parts and pieces that have been done, but so the decision to obviously mount a massive production of this in the midst of his success at the Oscars. With Oppenheimer, I think a lot of people are predicting there's going to be a lot of Oscars success on the other side of this movie probably as well. It's already grossed more than that did. That's just a lot of context for the movie itself. But like when it comes to thinking about where the Odyssey Levi fits into the year in cinema for you, and I think too, I can speak for both of us. It came at the end of all these other experiences we were having, so there was this kind of crescendo effect that felt like with finally seeing the Odyssey. What did you think of the Odyssey?
Well, that's what. To talk a little bit about the year in general, I don't want to go into that too much, but it's kind of a down year in terms of like, I mean, last year was such a big year for movies that like this year, I'm not saying it's a bad year, but it's just like there hasn't been as much that we're like, oh, I can't wait for that, or oh, this is the big thing coming. I mean, there will be stuff this year, but in terms of so far, I mean, the main stuff is this, the kind of Obsession Backroom. I don't think we ever officially talked about Backrooms on here, but that was
I think we did a little bit with.
Did we do the podcast since then?
I think so.
Oh, okay. I couldn't remember, but I don't know. Anyway, that we did Obsession. We talked about. Well, obviously Obsession came out. Backrooms, the drama. We're big fans of that. The Bride, Disclosure Day, which we like.
Yeah, I've got that on our last episode.
Okay. So. And Disclosure Day, we really liked a lot. We didn't talk about that any, but
yeah, we did on the last episode too. I'm looking.
Well, it's the last episode we did.
It was it's been that long. It was Sword of Doom and the Wild Bunch.
Oh, I forgot that we even did that. I was thinking that we did the last one that we did was
the war movies.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, we've done
that makes sense because then I was thinking I was
Backrooms,
like,
I Love Boosters and Disclosure.
Okay, I was thinking I was like, no, we did talk about that at some point. Okay. Wow. Anyway, that shows you how busy we've been. So we did kind of talk about the World Cup already, but anyway. So as far as what's the stuff that's like coming up? I know the Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma is one of them, which is a real name.
Yeah.
In case you're like, what? That is a real thing. Other than that, I can't.
Well,
really
there's
think.
Also we were talking about it earlier. The Primetime, the Chris Hansen, Dateline, CBS.
Yeah.
Catch a Predator.
Basically,
movie.
as we're kind of looking this up, my point here is that there wasn't a whole lot going on this year. You know what's also insane, by the way, is that like domestically in the United States, the Odyssey has made obviously still a little bit less than Toy Story 5 and the new Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, this was kind of the movie this year, and therefore. There was a lot of like, okay,
hand-wringing
right.
and speculation.
And just in general, like, okay, what will that be? Will that... Not saying that it would be worth anything. I knew it would be, but it was just kind of a big movie. And it was a big movie. And I liked it maybe just ever so slightly less than everybody else, which means it's a 4.5.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Yeah.
Cool, who cares? But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where he has such an ability of scope that, of course, he's going to deliver on that. I really loved also the. I mean, he does this with every movie, but he still somehow finds ways to do it differently. His sense of time and temporal relations of time, is unmatched. And the way he told his story through, Odysseus's remembrances through Calypso, on being on Calypso's island, I thought was really well done. And I really love the Athena stuff in the movie, which is so quiet and very delicate and silent.
And is one of the the biggest conversation that's been happening about it is an adaptation is excising of the gods for the most part from the story because they're a big part of the actual poem.
Yeah.
Athena, played by Zendaya in the movie, is one of the more explicit uses of gods in the movie. Calypso's a demigod, so it's like close, but and the final reveal of that character, which I don't want to spoil for anybody who's going to see it, I thought was incredibly well done and handled and kind of recontextualized a lot of the movie. And he's great at having those moments in movies and kind of having it's like a twist that's more of an emotional twist than it is like exactly changing the way we've been thinking about the whole story or anything, like in that way. But also, obviously, one of the great casts of the year, I think the fact that this was a part that Matt Damon took on really adds to his own resume as far as how he compares to the stars of his own cohort or, contemporaries, I guess you'd say. It's at once like exactly what you thought it would be as far as Nolan making the Odyssey, but also the most exciting version of that, I would say.
I agree.
And... I really outright loved it. I think I still might like Oppenheimer just slightly more.
Yeah.
As far as his most recent stuff. And it's weird that like the conversations around this movie are almost like citing it as like an original achievement, which of course it isn't. It's literally adapting one of the oldest stories. But as far as like what it means for current cinema, it's like it weirdly adapting one of the oldest stories that we have feels weirdly more original, or like it gets more points than just like another Marvel movie or a Star Wars movie, or you know what I mean? It's like a weird, it
more thoughtful version of that. Yeah,
that it's being touted that way as far as just the scope of it, and that it literally is adapting one of the oldest stories, and yet that feels somehow new or novel or fresh, and also just further confirms that Nolan is one of the definitive things that even I think he's definitely like among non-cineasts or cinephiles, like a filmmaker that if you said, oh, it's the new Nolan movie, that an average person would actually have an idea of what that might mean.
Right.
Which is a huge accomplishment to do in the modern day, because obviously it's through actors that most people primarily associate films with. So
yeah. So I mean, I think it was a very successful version of what it wanted to be. I thought the climax was unmatched.
Yeah,
really great.
Amazing score, which aids to all that.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny that, like, I mean, I'm not like a Hans Zimmer hater, but he's kind of a prickly, annoying guy anyway, Hans Zimmer.
Yeah.
Ludwig
Göransson.
So he's kind of the new guy.
Yeah.
Because did he also do the Sinners?
I think so. He's done a lot of major movies
like recently, because he did Oppenheimer, I know. And so, he's kind of everybody's new favorite for good reason.
So he did Mandalorian, Grogu, and this year. Sinners last year, Oppenheimer before that. I think he started working with him Tenet onward, because I think Hans Zimmer was his last score for him was Dunkirk.
Right.
I think so.
Okay, so not to move on from that too quickly, but I'm looking at the rest of the year. I guess we need to go through that.
Yeah.
Real fast. As far as like what is coming up, and some of these things we'll get to talk to. We already have another double feature plan.
Yeah.
We'll see when we can get to that. I'm going to be doing soccer season, so
Yeah.
we'll get to it at some point in there, I think. But
yeah.
Right now, first of all, did you know that Attack of the Killer Tomatoes Organic Intelligence?
I did. I'd forgotten about that.
Which is funny. But anyway, as far as immediately, we had already mentioned the teenage sex and death at Camp Miasma, which will come out here probably in the next couple weeks.
Yeah.
To go through this as quick as I can, let's see. Dog Stars.
Nope.
The Ridley Scott movie, film, in quotes.
Yeah.
Coyote versus Acme is finally coming out.
What's the date for that?
That's the 28th.
Okay.
Along with Idiots. You know who's directing that, by the way? That guy the movie that had like James Franco, O'Shea Jackson, Junior Mason Timms, Macon Blair.
Oh wow, really? Okay.
Yeah. So I kind of want to see that. We'll see. But did you know they're already making a Fall 2?
Really?
Wasn't that movie that was the one where it was in the? Oh wait, no, I'm thinking of something else. I was thinking it was that movie that was the date. It was like Drop or whatever, but never mind. That's a different thing. Okay, who cares? By Any Means, the Mark Wahlberg, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II film.
Which has one of the great endings.
Trailer endings, like it black. This is like, what? Wow. Anyway.
It's been a while since I've been like, a Mark Wahlberg movie I kind of want to see, and that's one of them. So
look at this movie, Virginia Woolf's Night and Day, and it's got all these random people in it. And I don't know, I just look at that, and I know it's based on her book Night and Day, and it's like, I don't know, I just look at that and know that Virginia Woolf killed herself, and I'm like, that doesn't really
give off the
vibe to me.
Yeah.
Not that should be the total, whatever, but I don't know, that's just whatever. Let's go. Resident Evil in September 18th. That's your movie you're looking for to get mad at our old friend Zach Kreger. Well, you're already mad at him, but let's see. Prime time on the 25th. So that's right before your birthday.
Yeah.
You know how this looks.
Yeah.
Right? Or you see how this looks. Okay. There's a Unabomber movie coming out. I want you to try to imagine who would play the Unabomber. Go. You will be wrong.
I'm just going to say the first person I thought of that would, do a Unabomber movie, Michael Shannon. Not him.
Jacob Tremblay.
Jacob Tremblay, okay.
As Ted Krasinski.
Wow.
Okay, I want you to look at that, and I want you to look at Jacob Tremblay. Literally the most insanely different. Somebody go right now, if you're listening to this, go to Wikipedia, look up the film Unabomber. Well, I love that's the name, by the way. Nothing like The Wind Beneath the Willows or something. It's like Unabomber, just whatever. Go look up, hover over Jacob Tremblay's picture and then Ted Krasinski's picture. Wow.
Yeah.
Also has Russell Crowe in it as Henry Murray. I don't know what his deal is. But anyway, well, actually, apparently it's like, yeah, over 20 years, so it's like when he was younger, I guess, but still, that's like, what? Anyway, so that's mostly for September. October, Digger. We don't have time to talk about that now. We'll talk about it.
We'll definitely see it, though.
But we have a lot of thoughts on that.
Yeah.
The Social Reckoning comes out the same day on the 9th as Other Mommy, which I was quite impressed by that trailer. I don't know about you, but...
what's funny is I saw a lot of well, it's been interesting to see obviously the Odyssey get memed and all these little moments start to already percolate. It's going to be a big meme movie, I think. But like that, like I saw multiple memes that were about that trailer during the Odyssey, and it was like clearly talking about the Other Mommy, and it was just
One funny thing about that, it was based on a novel called Incidents Around the House. I think Other Mommy is a better title.
You know, as that trailer was starting, I was thinking, I haven't seen Jessica Chastain in anything in a while. And then, oh my God.
She's been in trouble being two mommies. So. Or she's had trouble doing that. That Street Fighter movie's coming out. I only mentioned that because Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns are going to be in it. Wellfall. That movie, that trailer was insane.
Yeah.
Like, I don't
That's
even
an
know.
acclaimed book from a few years ago. I know.
The Only Living Pickpocket in New York. Have you heard about this? This is that new John Turturro, Giancarlo Esposito, Steve Buscemi, Jamie Lee Curtis movie. Tatiana Maslany. Looks kind of interesting. I think it has something to do with Ryan Johnson. I don't know how, though, because he tweeted something about it. Apparently not. I don't know. Maybe he just liked it and tweeted about it, or said something about it. Clayface.
Yeah.
Not really sure how to feel about that, but whatever. The new Taika Waititi, Clara and the Sun will be skipping. All right, moving down to November. Cat in the Hat on the 6th.
Nope.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay. Wild Horse 9 on the same day.
Okay.
Randomly intrigued.
Yeah. Next
I
Martin
love
McDonagh
that
movie.
moment in the Red Band trailer where Sam Rockwell is cussing out Steve Buscemi on the phone, and he hangs up, and John Malkovich looks back and says, "Was that your mother?" Yeah. Makes me laugh harder every time I see it. The Jimmy Stewart movie is also that day, which looked awful.
Yeah.
Ebenezer.
When Ebby became Neezer.
Ty West
Master of Mischief
Ty West
is back.
Oh,
Jonathan Dett, our old friend. We haven't talked about him in a while. Did you watch the trailer for Ebenezer? I can't remember if you hadn't or not.
Do we need to do it?
Yeah, we're gonna hit stop on this right now, and we're gonna watch it, and Levi's gonna react to it.
All right.
It's good to be back.
To Uncle Scrooge.
To Uncle Scrooge.
Mr. Scrooge.
I say to you, sir, Merry Humbug! Merry Christmas! Humbug! And a Happy New Year!
Humbug!
Merry Christmas.
So I just put the audio in for this.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Will you be seeing
yes.
Ebenezer? Levi?
Yes, I will.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you right now.
We gotta help him pay off this.
Listen, he tried to have a comeback a couple years ago when he made that Jean du Barry movie or Jean Barry movie or whatever, and that showed at Cannes. There was that really weird. You need to go watch it if you haven't seen it. No, I know you have, but I'm saying
about this.
One of the weirdest, most uncomfortable.
Yeah.
like things ever is watching him at the press conference for that movie at Cannes.
Yeah.
So unbearable. Oh my god, like it was so awkward.
I got a feeling we'll see. This movie's going to be a hit, and it's going to re-put John, the Master of Misfits, back into our lives again.
I literally said, like, I know when this first came out that this was a thing. I texted in the group chat with our cousin Philip and you. I said, every single mom in 2009 is like creaming right now, basically. I mean, it's literally a movie that is so old hat, literally. I saw a trailer and I thought it was going to be about how Abby became Neezer, but it really it's just like. Also, that is the whole point of A Christmas Carol.
That's one of the most perplexing things about this. It's like it's framing it all as like, oh, it's obviously an adaptation of A Christmas Carol. It's the story you've never heard before, and it's like, what? So you're just going to do the flashbacks that are a very clear part of.
Right.
A Christmas
Carol.
The
part where he farted with his mouth,
yeah.
I was literally like, I can't believe that this happened. I have to show this to my mom because she's going to freak out laughing about how stupid it is. We need to stop making Christmas Carol movies. That needs to end right now.
It's weird to say that about like one of the truly greatest stories in the history of mankind, but we've already done some... but I think they're really just trying to do anything other than just calling it A Christmas Carol. It's like, it's Ebenezer.
Well, they're trying to push it that it's in its own way. He literally says it in trust. It's good to be back. Like, why would Ebenezer Scrooge ever say that? That's literally a trailer moment for Johnny Depp to say it's good to be back.
Do you think yeah, I agree. Do you think that's at the end of the movie where he's quote unquote reformed or something, and they're recontextualizing?
No, it's going to be something. It probably won't even be in the movie. It probably ain't going to be in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. The most random detail of all this is that Ty West is directing it.
Yeah, you had no
which
clue
is
about
so
it
insane.
until I said
no,
that.
literally, you were like, "Guess who's directing it?" And I was like, "No way! Are you serious?" And then when I look at it, I kind of see some of the horror potential a little bit.
Yeah.
As far as the ghosts in it and everything.
Yeah.
And then, but then when I'm seeing that, I'm thinking, so this is just going to be A Christmas Carol again, is what it is.
Yeah. Because it's a Paramount release with Johnny Depp, so it's going to be a pretty big conventional movie.
Right.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Yeah. It's good to be back.
No, it's not. It's not good for you to be back.
And yet, you said you're going to see it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Oh, no, of course. No, listen.
It's just the morbid curiosity of
yes. If I could sneak into it, I'll try.
Yeah.
It'd be one of them, I don't know. That'll be tough. Because it's tough to do that these days. And I've just said it, so everybody's going to be watching.
Yeah.
Young Ebenezer. It expands upon... Listen, Paramount's marketing uses the tagline, the name you know, the story you don't.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? How they make Niece's sausage? Like, what are you talking about? Indicating that the adaptation expands... Indicating, by the way, that's a good word to use. That the adaptation expands upon familiar elements of Dickens' novella.
Okay.
Let's see who all else is in this.
Rupert Grint, you mentioned Bob Cratchit.
Andrea Riseborough, Sam Claflin, Daisy Ridley. Daisy Ridley is in something. Look at that.
Yeah.
Ian McKellen. Who's Ian McKellen going to be?
Jacob Marley.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
He's going to be Jacob Tremblay as Ted Krasinski.
It better have a Fezziwig Christmas party.
If it don't, I'm going to piss nothing. All right. Same day as that, How to Rob a Bank. I actually was kind of impressed by that trailer. We kind of were like, oh, okay. And Paper Tiger, the new James Gray movie. Let's just say those last two movies are far more interesting than the first, but all of them will be seen.
Yeah.
We were talking about this with Philip, that new David O. Russell movie, Madden, is coming out.
Yeah, it's going to be coming out on Prime, I think.
Yeah, with Christian Bale as... well, first of all, Nicolas Cage is... John Madden, and then Christian Bale as Al Davis.
Yeah.
Which is just maybe the greatest casting of all time. I don't know.
I already know this ship. This is the ship that will launch 1,000 memes. This whole movie, for cringe or whatever purposes.
Catherine Hahn, also John Mulaney, Shane Gillis. Hang on, I got to see who all these people are. Okay, John Mulaney's going to be Trip Hawkins, who was the founder of EA.
Yeah.
Shane Gillis is not named. Joel Murray is Pat Summerall.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. Anyway, so they're really going to go all in on his whole career.
Yeah.
How many turduckens are going to be in the movie? How many turduckens did Nicolas Cage eat? Because he's crazy, so he's going to actually go all in. How many did he eat?
Don't you think like a John Madden movie would work best as this kind of meta, jumping all over the map, timeline spanning movie?
Yeah.
That's like kind of told irreverently. I feel like the David O. Russell treatment's going to try to take it all a little too
Basically, you're saying they need to make Vice, but John Madden.
Yeah, no, that's kind of like it's something that's like.
Well, he's such a crazy big figure anyway.
He did, like hearing he died was a weird experience because there are those people. It's like Hulk Hogan or whoever. It's like when Santa Claus dies. It's like a person that you never even actually truly understood to be a real person. It's like more of was a character or an idea that existed. In the culture.
I've never seen John Madden as a man.
Obviously we're more of the generation. Now we of course knew he was a coach and
And I've seen his Super Bowl. I mean, I've watched the whole thing.
And I saw the very final years of him as a broadcaster, but is primarily thought of as a video game character or a mascot of a video game. It's like Mario or something, But he was a guy, So I'll be curious to see how that works itself out with that. But,
sorry, I'm laughing about something. Okay,
we'll be covering it. And talk
just
about
a second. Of course. Fokker-in-Law. Nothing to say about that other than that it exists. Adventures of Cliff Booth, the movie that barely exists.
But will exist.
Yeah. We don't have a lot to say about that because we'll talk about it later. But that it's finally coming out.
I heard that DiCaprio was approached about maybe reprising his role as Dalton.
Wait, really?
And that, but that he, I think, turned it down and didn't want to do it. But we'll see if that how that works out.
Hershey.
About Hershey, chocolate.
Okay, so it's Milton S. Hershey and his wife Kitty. All right, here are the people who are in this movie. Finn Wittrock as Hershey, which he literally looks like. No offense to him, because I've liked him in a lot of things. Actually, he's pretty good. I thought he was really good on the Assassination of Gianni Versace, by the way. But anyway, that him is Hershey. But yeah, he literally looks like I'm going to be in a movie about Hershey. Yeah, that's you. Alexandra Daddario as his wife. Alan Ruck.
Okay.
Richard Kind.
Okay.
David Costabile, that guy who's in everything, So anyway, that just made me laugh, all those people in it. Can you imagine him, pick me the F up later, Hershey. So that's happening.
Yeah.
And then literally the next week, in the first week of December, The Man with the Bag with Alan Ritchson as Vince, Arnold Schwarzenegger as Santa Claus, Awkwafina, Kyle Mooney, Ken Jeong.
Wow.
So
it's a Christmas movie, clearly.
Look at that guy, Maria.
Yeah, it's clearly a Christmas movie.
It's a Christmas action comedy. There are randomly too many of those.
Yeah.
They need to stop.
Can
you imagine Arnold Schwarzenegger and Awkwafina having scenes? I'm just really thinking about that.
I was thinking recently.
She's going to be the head elf.
I think the action comedy is the single most cursed genre in all of movies. It's like the fact that Rush Hour, and I'm not even the biggest all-time Rush Hour fan, but that first one especially is actually a great collision of action and comedy. But when I think of the modern action comedy, I think of The Rock and say Kevin Hart in it, and it's just we all know how exactly mediocre this is going to be.
Right.
So, anyways.
Yeah. So on the 11th of December, the debut, that new Jesse Eisenberg movie. I don't know. I'll probably see it, but I don't care. Avengers Doomsday, which we won't see. Doom Part 3, same day as that. Doomsday.
Yeah.
I know everybody's been talking about that, but
yeah.
And then the same day, Ray Gun.
The new Brad
Bird movie looks pretty interesting.
I think that's going to be on Netflix.
Did you know they're making another Jumanji movie?
Oh yeah, because me and our cousin Philip, we watched the trailer for it together on YouTube. I remember him being I was just so checked out. I was just what?
Mighty. And then Werewolf the same day on Christmas Day.
Okay.
You saw the trailer for that finally, right?
Yes.
Effed up S.
So looking
Anyway.
through the and then there's going to be these random
There'll be other
movies
stuff that pop up,
that'll get
and stuff
dates.
that'll go into the next year a little bit.
Yeah. I agree with you. There's been some really high quality, great stuff so far this year. The things that I think I've been thinking the most about have been the Odyssey and the drama, which both star Robert Pattinson and Zendaya.
Yeah.
And they feel like kind of the movie stars of the
Somebody get
year,
these
so to
beggars
speak.
out of here, kind of like somebody get these pedophiles out of here, or actually in here so we can make them part of television history? What's the role there?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. But I do think it's been a little bit of a down year compared to like even the last 2 years as far as what the release schedule has been and what it looks like it's going to be. But I know there's going to be those things that surprise us along the way.
That make us
actually,
say Merry Christmas.
Yeah. And that, but then the things that are going to probably be letdowns and we thought they were going to be good, but turned out not to really be. So.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see.
Because by this point last year, we'd already had Sinners, Eddington, obviously, a lot.
We were very soon going to have one battle after another,
right?
Yeah.
So, I think we'll survey the landscape obviously again at the very end of the year and see how things worked out. But
all right, quickly,
the
Shards finally came out all of a sudden.
Yeah, obviously a few years ago, Levi. Well, no, I think I recommended this book after Levi had recommended it to me. No,
we both talked about it.
Yeah, one of us said it was our book of the year we had read.
Probably me. I
can't remember, but anyways, we both loved the book, The Shards by Bret Easton Ellis.
If it wasn't mine, it was. So I'm going to tell you.
Great book, and it's it was announced a few years ago that Luca Guadagnino was developing that as a potential project. He's announced for a lot of stuff that ends up not happening exactly, so we ended up not seeing his version of it. But I think it's Hulu. Are they the ones who are doing this?
Yeah, it's FX.
FX.
So because it's through Ryan Murphy, so it's a FX thing, and then it's weird. It's like it says created by Ryan Murphy and Bret Easton Ellis, so he had at least some version of involvement with the show, it seems. But anyway, but so basically all of that being said, it's on Disney Plus, which is insane, by the way.
Right.
But more and more you see all kinds of stuff on Disney Plus that's like
I think they're pretty good about, probably for whoever's on it, siloing off those experiences and having probably a lot of parental control stuff on there, obviously, that's going to prevent certain kids from seeing it. But so I've not started watching this just yet. I'm obviously, my interest on this whole film project of it went down as soon as I heard Guadagnino was not involved, but obviously I'm glad that it's being adapted in some way because I think it has the potential to still be a good
my whole point.
version
I'm going to try to watch it over the next little bit. It's out. The first 2 episodes are out, but I just haven't watched it yet. But I figured we'd mention it because it was one of those things that wasn't happening and then it just happened all of a sudden. So Richard Gere's son is playing the Robert Mallory serial killer character. Well, or is he?
Yeah. We don't know. You'll have to watch to find out. But
Or read the book.
Yeah, so
that'd be better. How about you just go read the book and just don't worry about it unless I tell you need to, okay?
We'll be back to maybe talk about it a little
later
bit.
on.
Speaking of talking about it, we're going to talk about a movie. I'm going to start
that.
You know how people try to really build in these really elegant segues or whatever? I'm just going to start doing these hard segues of just like, all right, now this is the part of the podcast where we do this.
One of my favorite things to say is when a kid's standing outside a door not doing something, say, this is the part where you go in. So, yeah.
Speaking of going in to a tough experience.
Yeah, really. Dang.
Yeah, that's something you want to go into. Anyways, here is the trailer for 2024's Nickel Boys.
Long time, long time, long time.
That's it, Al. You're doing great.
What happened to that one kid I used to hang with all the time?
You don't remember?
Remember what?
You really don't remember.
I don't know what more you want me to remember.
What are you gonna do? It's now or never.
Hello.
So, Nickel Boys from 2024, already 2 years ago. This movie hasn't, this is among the quicker movies we've done on this podcast as far as talking about it.
Next one will be even quicker.
Obviously, as well. 2024 American Historical...
No, Eddington, actually.
Yeah, that was technically the soonest we've done one.
Anyway, yeah.
2024 American Historical Drama film based on the 2019 novel The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. Directed by RaMell Ross, who is primarily known for documentary work that he had done before, which I think adds to this movie.
I knew that this was kind of his first, main, narrative.
Yes, and he wrote this screenplay with Jocelyn Barnes. It stars Ethan... How do you pronounce his last name? Harise, maybe, I believe. Brandon Wilson. Hamish Linklater. Fred Heckinger. David Diggs, who's obviously a pretty big name, Jimmy Falls, and follows two African-American boys, Elwood and Turner, and those names end up being very important, I think, for these characters, as we'll talk about, who were sent to an abusive reform school in 1960s Florida. It's inspired by the real-life Dozier School for Boys, which is a now-closed Florida reform school notorious for abusive treatment of students. What's really notable about this movie is it's shot primarily through this first-person point of view perspective that even switches between our two main characters. Again, it came out as a festival movie in late 2024. It got a very small U.S. release. I was lucky enough to see it on the big screen. The Flickr Film Society here in Hickory put it on at the Carolina Theater in early 2025. But this movie's primarily been seen through Amazon Prime. And as we've talked about before, and we will be, that's a big problem that Levi and I have sometimes is, we live in an area where we have to make special trips for the most part to see things in either Charlotte or Asheville that are a little bit more of a art house size. So we miss out on plenty of stuff, obviously, because of that. This is a movie that is going to play in your bigger markets or cities, but for the most part, that's how people are going to see it, is via streaming. Yeah. And so, by virtue of that, there's a lot of movies that, I'll get around to seeing that. And as we know, 3 to 5 years goes by, and you go, that's been sitting there, and I never did.
I'm glad I got to this one as soon as I did, but yeah.
And the same could have easily happened for me with the Mastermind, because that was on an even more, a little bit obviously niche app and Mubi.
Yeah.
Amazon Prime, actually, we've talked about this here and there, has a pretty good selected hit rate of independent movies that they put on their service.
And they at one time they had a really good just library anyway. They still have a pretty good one, but honestly, Tubi has kind of taken a lot of that stuff, and so they just are less likely to have it now. But
This, and I think this is true also with the Mastermind, have entered a if you know status with them, where they've both gotten these very intense fan bases of people who think they're really great, but outside of they've neither one have been popular hits or really made an impression, and I think that's just the nature of streaming today that makes it a little different than the previous eras. But this movie was named by IndieWire as the best film of the 2020s so far, and then also in 2024, and it's already been cited as among the best films of this half-plus decade now so far. obviously, Levi, you've also read the Nickel Boys novel, which I have as well. This came in with a lot of hype, a lot of pretense. What did you finally kind of settle on when thinking about this movie as a finished product once you saw it?
I think it's pretty great, but I have some minor reservations about it, and I think it's more about what the aesthetic lends to the material, which is very specific. And like you said, this is almost like getting into film theory things too, like you were talking about earlier, but that... before I say that, and this is all very kind of a complicated subject that I want to speak very definitively on, is that we are in an era now where black cinema has been more prevalent, in terms of, African American cinema, has been more prevalent than it's ever been in terms of...
two of the biggest filmmakers right now are like Jordan Peele and Ryan Coogler.
Right.
So black cinema has gone through an incredible elevation and transformation over the last 10 plus years. Yeah,
right.
For sure.
Yeah, and that's obviously a great thing. But having said that, what that also means is that like and the shame is that we're even talking about this like as a genre. It shouldn't be the case, but by nature of it still is a, ancillary or minority extension of drama films.
Yeah.
That it naturally. Well, maybe I should put it more in terms of, I guess, like African American social justice kind of, or civil rights cinema in its own way. Maybe is a better term. But that anyway, by nature of that, any genre or subgenre or type of movie or type of story is going to be told only so many certain ways.
Right.
Nickel Boys, the novel, and this movie have the kind of perverse distinction of being a story that hasn't kind of exactly been told by nature of the real Dozier School, which somehow is still baffling to me. And if you don't know about that, or somehow after having not watched this movie, or you're just not aware, you can look up, is a baffling story about a school for both white and black kids in Florida that was a reform school that basically just committed these kind of, I wouldn't say mass murder, but frequent murders of, for lack of a better term, inmates there.
Reform school where these boys were treated as effectively criminals,
right? Or just
system.
in what this is implying in the movie, and I think rightfully in the book, it's slaves.
Yeah.
To a certain extent. Which it's always important to note that the way that a lot of Jim Crow or really any form of incarceration has got around the 14th Amendment.
There's a really great...
what is it, 13th Amendment? Now I feel dumb. The 13th Amendment, right?
Well, 13th Amendment abolished slavery. 14th Amendment is like equal protection under the law.
Yeah, okay, I'm talking about the 13th.
Yeah.
The 13th Amendment said that it would only be used in times of incarceration.
Right.
Is a really bad loophole, which then allows all kinds of...
Yeah, and if you haven't seen the Ava DuVernay doc,
yeah, and it's about all this.
It's all about that. It's really good.
Which now makes me feel dumb because I was thinking, that was the 13th. The 13th Amendment has that loophole in it, which has still not been changed, technically.
Yeah.
Now, pretty much everybody would say that for the most part now, that is seen as, that wouldn't be likely, And I think it's fine for there to be a certain amount of manual labor that, an incarcerated person would do. However, I mean, because there's community services versions of that, but I don't see that as slavery. This is basically slavery. What's in this movie, and in terms of not only the way they're treated, but also the things they're asked to do.
And even as white boys are being mistreated, there's clearly a racial caste system that still exists within that system.
An interesting aspect to this that was in the book too, and I forgot, and that's in the movie, is that there's that Hispanic inmate that's there who literally is bounced back and forth between is he white or is he black, which really, I mean, this is obvious anyway, really makes the whole racial divide really silly and stupid, you know, and which it is already, but that's just a very perfect encapsulation of it, of like, well, where do we put this person? It's like, well, why do you have to put people anywhere is the, you know, obviously, but that, so this is kind of an untold story in terms of that, and about like how they were really, it took until basically the late 2000s for them to actually start digging up the bodies that had been buried there, the like mass amount of deaths that there had been.
I think this story adds to the whole tradition of the civil rights era film, because we've seen a lot of versions of things set during this time and era, and this was like a little bit of a different one in particular, like a coming of age story.
Right, and I think
these characters who are evolving in their own thoughts about this time and place in the midst of being in this awful circumstance.
And I think that there's the sameness that I kind of feel about the movie sometimes is also just because it is, or that I'd read the book, is you know, and so it was pretty faithful adaptation in that sense. But getting all to that point, I think that sometimes the aesthetic of the movie, which, you know, positions that the camera will be either Turner or Elwood the whole time, and I had forgotten that it apparently goes back and forth. You know.
And I applaud the movie in a big way for being, to me, very clear of who's who in those, because that could get confusing.
Right, because the whole first act is just through Elwood's vision. Anyway, all that to say that the movie then, I think at points does kind of, and by nature of the twist of the movie, which we won't exactly go into, I don't feel like there's any major point in talking about that unless you feel you need to.
Maybe at the end, we'll see.
But that doesn't necessarily break the rules in terms of that, I feel like, but there's moments where it kind of just it works to kind of, I feel like it's working really hard to create these blocking and setups that don't necessarily, it works hard to do that within the POV aspect, and I feel like it's straining really hard sometimes. But the biggest part to me is that it doesn't ever, I don't actually feel like it feels like a found footage movie at any point, because both the leads are first of all, the movie's too well made to feel like that, you know, which kind of says something bad about the found footage movie inherently, I think.
Well, that has the whole used media.
But also those movies are cheaply made and cheaply.
Well, I'm just saying they can get away with being like that a little more. So this is going for a reality that requires, I think, a high degree of lighting and attention to detail.
Yeah, absolutely. But also those movies are made so kind of poorly because they're made by people who aren't professionals. Also because that's an easy thing to do. The aesthetic of the movie allows for a certain amount of poor
grittiness,
poor filmmaking, frankly. This obviously does not have that as a issue at all. Anyway, I think that aesthetic, though, with this movie, while it never feels like a found footage movie, it sometimes is cut up into memories as if you're watching it through a camera. And I think that kind of robs the movie to a certain extent of the emotionality that Whitehead so effortlessly imbues the story with. I'm not saying that the movie doesn't leave me emotional. It does, but I feel like there's a component missing because it's simply switching back and forth. You're not getting an internal monologue or even just an apartness from the people to kind of have an observational emotion about it. It's hard to explain, but it's like the nuts and bolts of the here and there of that actual like aesthetic get really complicated by the fact that it's just these points of view the whole time.
I know for me personally, I thought it was an incredibly immersive experience, in particular that it replicates real life, where you can literally, the camera can be looking at one place and yet you hear, obviously off screen, someone who's in the room with you, but you're just not dedicating your attention. And that's something like really hard to capture in a movie where like you have maybe a traditional scene between two characters and one's clearly distracted and looking elsewhere, and we're like able to take in and focus on that actor's expression, even though if we can't quite see their point of view. This is where you would literally also be seeing that point of view that the person has, which also, we didn't really talk about this, led to me like questioning, how do you even judge the performances of this movie? Because the performances are like actually in some ways happening right off screen, where you're not noticing the actor in question who's the real point of view that you're getting. You're more noticing obviously the other actors in the scene's performances, and so that's just kind of a disorienting experience to watch.
It is, but then it matches it out because they both get screen time ultimately. I feel like the person who gets the most screen time is his last name's Wilson. It just left me his first name. The guy that plays Turner gets more screen time ultimately.
Brandon Wilson.
Yeah, than Ethan Harise did as Elwood.
Yeah.
Because also a lot of the stuff where it's like reflections early in the movie are of that other kid who played Elwood as a child too. So it's kind of weird for Harise to only get so much of the time.
Also, one of the most memorable performances I feel like is Anjuan L. Ellis Taylor, who plays Elwood's grandmother, I believe.
Yeah.
Hattie was her name. And you know, one thing I like remembered about this movie, seeing it the first time, and then it came back into focus seeing it again, was again, this is a movie that I feel like is amazing and in its own way. The Mastermind is too, in different ways, about texture and production design and this like lived in experience. Because I remember distinctly the scene after she was making that like cake that had the peanut butter icing, and she's scraping.
Oh, yeah.
She's scraping on the bowl or on this big bowl, and then like you in the sound that it's making, and you like seeing it just was like, it reminds you of when you were a kid watching your own grandmothers or for us like great aunt like make something, and you just have those particular sounds or textures or smells are just burned into your consciousness. And this movie does a great job of like you feeling wistful about, in this case, even an unhappy childhood, but you still feel and see the beauty within that life, you know. And that's just like, I think like that, those textural experiences for this movie are really more important than the narrative, what the ultimate narrative of it is, as far as the immersive first-person feeling, too. Yeah. I think, too, you mentioned, or obviously earlier, found footage movies. I've been talking about this for the last few years of, like, when are we going to start seeing the aesthetics of found footage filter into cinema through other means, where it's, like, clearly comes from that tradition, but we're doing different things with it. This also came out for me when I saw it right around the time Presence did, and so I was thinking a lot about like these first-person experiences, and that one's even more mysterious, what exactly you're looking through the eyes of, and to what extent even the characters are aware of what they're looking at. With you, this is obviously more clearly we're one of these two characters, but I found this to be a really, again, immersive, positive step forward where we're seeing some of that found footage cinema filter into genres we don't immediately recognize or think of it with it. Because, again, one thing we could talk about, and we already put it in the placement of these like modern black films that have been made in the last 10, 15 years. What about even particular with Colson Whitehead's The Underground Railroad, which was a TV show that I think we've touched on here or there in the past. Terrific, also came on Amazon Prime. Recently got a Criterion release, I know, and
I have it, but I haven't rewatched it.
And
we really
I think I've heard that there are some commentary tracks on that of Barry Jenkins, kind of more openly talking about some of the struggles that he had with Amazon on that experience, as a way of saying, hey, you know, this got made, but it was not easy, and him talking through that. One of the, I didn't even mention this with you, one of the things I even thought about with this movie was the outright influence of Barry Jenkins on a visual level that I think that this conceit also allows for these gorgeous, immaculate close-ups, and that's something that I think me and a lot of people, including you, associate with Barry Jenkins' filmmaking is his close-ups of actors.
We need more close-ups
intense.
in movies. Just frankly, we just need more of that.
Yeah.
I say that all the time, but I mean, that's what I really love about watching a lot of silent cinema is the amount of close-ups that there are. If you've got a filmmaker that knows what they're doing, of course, you'd have a lot of those big, a lot of the original silent films were so big about like spectacle, and so sometimes the people would get lost. But if you're even talking about, not the best person to bring up when talking about this movie, but D.W. Griffith, or Murnau or Lang, uses of close-up being so arresting.
Yeah.
I think that, and also, obviously Jenkins has been compared a lot to Wong Kar-wai, and I've done that myself plenty. He knows how to do that too. This I think tracks with that really well. I think with Jenkins, there's a lot more of like an immediate aesthetic need, or like it's more aestheticized.
Yeah.
Whereas here it's like more natural. Obviously that it happens. In that it's a lot more like this is happening this way.
Yeah.
We are taking a breath in the movie to have a shot of this person looking this way rather than it just happening.
It's interesting to put these two projects together because obviously that's a TV show and this is something that's more cinematic. The outright premise of the Underground Railroad, where it's like saying, well, it's of this era, but it's also got these almost fantasy adjacent or, intentionally anachronistic elements. Yeah. Versus this is like much more straightforward in a lot of ways in terms of like its connection to the time period it's from. And yet it also has its flights of fancy as far as how it's jumping between these timelines. And that's something that for me was a welcome surprise because I think the book's a lot more conventional in terms of starting in the future in this context. And then most of the book is a conventional flashback to the past before we go back to that. And this jumps around a little bit more that I think as a viewer just keeps you on your toes. And I think is probably a way to like break up the formalism of the movie of saying, okay, well, it's still first person, but it's almost more of a second person view that we get in the David Diggs section. How do you think this compares for you with Underground Railroad? And in particular, what did you think of that, like how this story organizes itself?
I don't know because I really want to rewatch. Well, if it's a question of the books, Underground Railroad, I prefer the books.
Yeah,
but pretty definitively, and I like the Nickel Boys book, but I like the movie a little better than the book here, probably. As far as if you're talking about the shows or the show and the movie, the Underground Railroad and Nickel Boys, I think, are pretty equal.
It's hard to. It's really hard for me to like make a big proclamation. One's totally better than the other. I need to rewatch
the Underground Railroad, but I think they get, but like they're both. I hate saying this, just because it's like very different styles, and so therefore they're judged on slightly different planes.
Yeah.
This does things that can't do, and that does things this can't do, just by nature of the difference. And so I like that they both exist. I guess.
Of course.
But I think I really just love the scope of the Underground Railroad, and I don't know. I think I slightly prefer that, but this is a very welcome perspective experiment. And another thing that the movie kind of does sometimes that I don't really love is it sometimes goes to these like photographs that David Diggs is looking up, or use of like found footage of another sense, of stuff that they put in there that makes it more documentary-esque. And I'm kind of like, that's another thing that I think kind of breaks the immersion of the point of view. And that's not the most important thing about the movie, I know, but that also is the thing I think that hinders it from being the most holistic emotional experience. But Yeah. Overall, I think it's successful. I think it's just slightly less than I would have liked, but
this movie also, I think, has a really terrific jazz score that I really appreciate. And one of the tragic elements of the book that I think was incredibly translated to the movie is just this sense of Elwood in particular, his how he views Martin Luther King Jr. as this transformative hero that he wants to be like, and he was on this right path towards going to some good schools where he could, break out of his tough circumstances, and yet he got pulled down by anchor by the circumstances he found himself in, and that cresting and evolution and seemingly dying, but the living on of that post-racial 60s dream that was starting to, and all that conflated with the space program, which is not something that is usually
I was interested by that,
done in media. I think, it's almost like in conversation with the Whiteys on the Moon from First Man, combining of these two phenomenons that were going on at that time, because usually they're put in separate silos of thought or conversation, and I think
they weren't separate for the black experience,
right? Exactly. We're mostly talking from a white perspective when we say that, obviously. And I just found that
but no, you're right. In terms of the general history of the '60s, those are two totally separate things. But I'm saying, that's not from the black point of view. They're not, because the black point of view asks, why is this happening, and we're not getting just even living as human beings, basically.
And I just found that conflation in this to be really compelling. And
interestingly, the Planet of the Apes is the perfect collision of those two ideas.
It's true.
But have we talked about those movies on here?
Yeah, I think so. But I love too, one of my favorite scenes in the movie is the scene, I think it's set in the 70s, between Daveed Diggs and the guy he runs into at the bar that also came from that school. And there's this unspoken quality that once you watch, if you've seen the story, know that, we'll just put it this way, Daveed Diggs' character, Turner's character, is not who he says he is.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of a difference there, and that scene kind of dances around that, but never comes out and says it, that character knows that he's, that he's somebody a little different.
Yeah.
And again, I think that this movie probably would have been a little bit of a bigger talking point in the era 10 years ago where Ava DuVernay's name was bigger, and her putting, obviously she didn't produce this movie, but produced by Ava DuVernay, or that name or that brand would have been a bigger deal almost 10 years ago, and this movie probably would have been more widely talked about. But coming out in the post-Obama age we live in now, I think this is a movie that a lot of people would look at from afar, and even people who would like it and go, oh, I got an idea what that is, and a chance that they might miss it. And that's part of the problem with this age of streaming we're living in, where there's just less of a impetus to watch and seek out things like this, as opposed to if it got a theatrical release. But at the same time, it's also an unconventional movie as far as it being in the first person perspective, so I don't know if people would have been willing to accept that in the same way that they do maybe even a found footage horror movie, or a movie that's looking at it first person.
Well, and it's uniquely, I like the movie, and I think it's better than I enjoyed it, because it was such a upsetting experience by nature of the point of view. Well, by nature of the material, but also the point of view that it gives as well. So, which is the point of the movie, in terms of saying, no, you will see this in terms of the way it was seen, and experienced. But which is also why I think sometimes the movie kind of cuts away from a little bit of that, and I'm kind of like, oh well, why didn't you go all the way here or do this? I don't know, but
So RaMell, it's not been announced if RaMell Ross is doing anything new or working on anything new. Like I said, he's made some documentary work. Made a film a few years ago in 2018 called Hell County, this evening, which was pretty widely acclaimed. Got a Best Documentary Feature nomination at the Oscars. And even won a Peabody Award, which is a big deal. So, again, if you haven't seen this, I'd highly recommend checking it out. I think the book's really good, but I think this is one of those things where the movie's even better than the book. But and I think definitely if you're interested in like a found footage, first person cinema type of film, but doing it with subject matter that normally does not get that point of view or perspective, this is a good version of that, I would say. Speaking of things that say things, here's the trailer for 2025's The Mastermind.
I saw Kip's father today. He said Kip has projects all over town.
He spends all his time balancing books, scheduling, on the phone. It's an idiotic way to spend your time.
Well, you seem to have a good amount of time on your hands.
Did you know the kids don't have school today?
I'm at work. Why can't they be with you?
I've got things to do.
What things? Like what? That's a lot of money.
Just hear me out. It's a big, life-changing opportunity for me. But I'd have to rent a workspace and purchase tools which I don't have. That sort of thing.
And this is real?
Mom, it's real.
Dad! Dad!
You don't look like cops.
See, James, we've been told that you're mixed up in this robbery.
I sure don't know how you got down this road, but you got the wrong idea. I'm afraid you got some bad information.
I sure do appreciate that once in a blue moon, someone I know and love is gonna come along and blow my mind.
Well, what do you say we stop talking about it for now? Because I find it kind of upsetting.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
JB?
Yeah.
Who's down there?
The guys are here.
Don't forget to lock the door.
Okay.
As you heard from that trailer, just like a very groovy early 70s score there. And again, I would mention with Levi, I was like, oh, have we talked about this Kelly Reichardt movie or that one? And she's been a name that we've talked about in passing here and there, but I don't think we've done a full episode on one of her movies, which is a shame because she is one of our, I think, best modern filmmakers who's not quite, I don't think, for me, gotten to like making a total 5-star movie yet.
Yeah, I would agree.
Although this is edging on getting close to that, as well as I think Certain Women and a few other movies of hers. But The Mastermind, Levi, why don't you tell us a little bit about The Mastermind?
So The Mastermind is a 2025 heist film, which is hilarious, but anyway. Yeah. Written and directed by Kelly Reichardt, stars Josh O'Connor, Alana Haim, Hope Davis, John Magaro, Gabby Hoffman, and Bill Camp. Can you ask for much better than that? Yeah. I don't know. Set in 1970, the film follows a struggling family man who plots to steal art from a suburban museum while the U.S. rages over the Vietnam War. I think it's interesting that that's mentioned so prominently because I want to talk about that a lot with this. But Reichardt described it as a struggle between the allure of individualism and the necessity of collective action, which is an interesting phrase. The film was inspired by a mixture of real-life events and classic films, including the 1972 robbery of the Worcester Art Museum and the films of Jean-Pierre Melville. This film premiered at Cannes and was released in the United States by Mubi. It never did end up showing around here. I had to see it. I actually watched it with mom and dad own Mubi, and they liked it overall. They were a little bit, I think, put off by its entire vibe, of just kind of like, about everything. Which I was used to.
It's a heist movie, not in the mold of an Ocean's movie or something like that. It's this slick Hollywood entertainment. Clearly, Reichardt's going for something a little different. Clearly,
yeah. I mean, and it's all from the point of view of Josh O'Connor. Pretty much the whole time, I was actually thinking the only time in the movie where he is not the point of view is where he gets that Larry guy to go steal that car. Oh, right. That is literally the only scene he is not in. Yeah. So it's kind of like Taxi Driver in that way. And so, I will say real quickly that to talk about Reichardt, we've probably talked about her a little bit in the past. Yeah. We've talked about Todd Haynes before, so we might have skated around. She is a part of his kind of oeuvre, and someone who makes. Yeah. I think generally she's seen as someone who makes fairly, and I mean this is a compliment, sedate, minimalist, not so thorny films that maybe have thorny moments, but they're not movies that. I think they're movies, generally speaking, that are not about a lot of like formal, aggressive conflict between characters. Right. They're a little bit more internal stories, and that's very hard to do. Oh yeah, and very hard. And I think that speaks to why her movies have this quiet power behind them, is because they're about as much about the things unsaid as they are about the things that are said. It's interesting to me that her most like intense in quotes movies are something like Night Moves or Meek's Cutoff, which are like this, similarly genre movies that are like non-genre movies. Yeah. I feel like Meek's Cutoff is probably the movie with the highest stakes. Well, I don't know. Night Moves is pretty big in terms of that, but I think those both moves, clearly have the bigger stakes. But there's less at stake. I feel as far as I think. Even thematically, though, both literally and thematically, Meek's Cutoff has more at stake than Night Moves does, because it's saying, not even the West be tamed? Can like human beings even survive basic, setbacks at all? Right. In terms of anything. And so anyway, that's just to say that her movies are primarily. About things that are a lot more thematically important. Yeah, obviously, again, more internal stories. Like, one of the bigger moments of conflict in certain women is the fact that Richard Harris's character gets a gun and holds those people like a couple people hostage or whatever. Because he's wanting this like workers' compensation to come through. Yeah. But like obviously that's the bigger deal, but I feel like even the scene where Laura Dern is driving him home from a meeting, she's his lawyer, driving him home from a meeting they had with another lawyer, and he says, "I'm just want to get a gun and just shoot everyone." And she's like, "You're not going to talk like that in my car." Is like a bigger conflict than him actually holding a man at gunpoint. Yeah. Like, and so that's like, just her whole kind of sense of tension is very unique in that way. And at times maybe comes off as kind of like a joke, I think, to some people maybe. And I think even she thinks it's kind of funny, probably. Yeah. And I do in my own way. But that, it's just a different... a totally different mode of movie making, and to the point where one of her more, I think, explicitly, directly, and I think all her movies are emotional, but maybe her most explicitly emotional movie is about a woman having to give up her dog with Winnie and Lucy. I was thinking earlier when you were talking about the stakes of obviously Meek's Cutoff and Night Moves.
are more explicitly higher.
Yeah.
But the emotional stakes of this one woman having to abandon her dog just feel as, in her work, feel just as fraught or just as problematic, which speaks to the scale of stories she wants to generally approach are a little bit more intimate and specific. And so this one, again, Josh O'Connor, he plays, he's an unemployed carpenter who wants to steal 4 Arthur Dove paintings from the art museum in Massachusetts, where he's living in Framingham. City in Massachusetts. And it's very clear from the early on, like, he's kind of a bum and a loser, but someone who knows a lot about what he knows about. And so it's not like he's not a man-child like in the Apatow movie exactly, but he's certainly somebody who his life isn't going anywhere fast, and he's got 2 kids, and he's married, and
he's a quiet, open loser. Like, it's weird because I wouldn't say that he's like totally silent the whole movie, obviously, but like he's very meek and kind of just like, oh, whatever.
And we don't have a scene of him like expressing his misanthropy to somebody or like. The
movie starts and he's already there.
Yeah, and there's no voiceover that gets us into his mind in a really explicit way. It's almost to prove that he can do it for himself, but of course he's wanting to make some money from this whole enterprise as well.
Well, because the movie opens with them in the art museum, and he literally just like opens one of the little cases of these little figurines and steals it.
Yeah.
And he basically just realizes, well, if I can get away with that, then I should steal these other paintings. But it's weird. You already get the sense that he's there when the movie starts. Like there's no point where he like looks around and really thinks about the fact that he wants to steal the figurine. He just steals the figurine. And similarly, he just decides, well, I'm going to steal this stuff. And he kind of talks about it a little bit with the guys he's going to do it with.
Yeah.
But it's more about the strategy of doing it rather than, oh, we have a way we can get away, or why I'm doing this, or whatever, you know. We know that, he was a carpenter and he's gotten fired, or basically just been out of work, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
And it's weird because it seems like there's people that he could work, or there's jobs he could have.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't want to do that. That's a waste of time. So he's more of he is an artist in the sense, and I think that's a quiet, really unspoken thing about the movie is he views himself as an artist.
Right.
Because he's a carpenter and he makes things, and so therefore he has an aesthetic interest in art. He doesn't know how to hang art on a wall, apparently, as we see in that one scene where he, like, once he has it stolen, he, like, puts it on the wall and he looks at it and it's, like, crooked. I know he's going to take it back down,
it should be
but
said,
it's, like,
too, that,
it doesn't look good.
A lot of Reichardt's movies have a little bit of comedy in them. This seems like it's going for something a little bit more explicit in the way of, like, it's like a less condescending version of a Coen Brothers movie where it's about the comedy of errors and it's about, like, the sloppiness of like some of this stuff that ultimately leads to his downfall. And so about the first 40 to 50 minutes are like the lead up to and the steal itself.
No, it's more like 30 minutes.
It's not all that long or whatever the actual time is.
20 or 30, yeah.
And then the rest of the movie, which is primarily what the movie is just all about the fallout from this happening.
Right.
And what's funny is like...
Which is kind of like a Melville movie in terms of when we watched The Red Circle, or Circle Rouge. That happens halfway through the movie, so it's a little different. But a big bulk of that movie is about the aftermath of them doing it, you know, so yeah.
And very quickly, like, his fortunes start to shrink, and then, like, it becomes really, after a certain point, where it's like, well, he's pretty much just lost everything, so I guess he just is on the run now, you know. And it leads to, obviously, his conditions getting worse and worse. But one thing I really appreciate about this movie, it's a very, like, comfy movie. It's a movie that's, like, I never feel any real sense of danger as I watch it, which I don't want to necessarily see that for every heist movie I watch, but as a counterpoint to those, it seemed natural that this would be Reichardt's realization of doing a movie in that
And once again, that feels very Melville to me in terms of the Le Cercle Rouge is a movie that is really fun to luxuriate within as far as the locations and the framing and the blocking and everything just looks so well, it's very winter, and this is very like fall.
Yeah, it's
kind
in
of,
like
so,
October. It's
yeah.
very autumnal, and again, in a different way than Nickel Boys, it's very textural experiences, like between all the set design, production design, the costumes, the music. Also, like you mentioned earlier, all the Vietnam that's playing out in the background of the TV. And, you know, we had a little conversation while we were watching it, is like how compelling it would be to experience a lot of that real time. And I think that's true objectively, but also, yeah, you get bored of it. It's something that happens on the background of TV. And then you also mentioned of when he's on the run and he has to briefly stay with Megaro's character and his wife.
Gabby Hoffman,
that it's got echoes of him being like a draft dodger and he's like on the run and maybe he's going to run away to Canada. And the movie's very smart and not like making that very super obvious, but ultimately that's a context that of an era that this movie's taking place in where that comes to mind or is, you know, fresh as a comparison point.
So that's what I was going to ask is, what do you think this movie's exact message is regarding Vietnam? Because I have some specific ideas, and after having seen it twice, very openly am just like, I have no idea, but I kind of love it and don't care. So any thoughts?
I think just generally speaking, again, part of it was, I think Reichardt was trying to communicate this awful, crazy thing is happening, and it just serves as background noise to us. I think some people could look at, and I wouldn't be surprised if she's even trying to make a comment on the Israeli-Palestine situation, with that being this thing that's just happening in our culture, and we can choose to pay attention to it or just kind of tune it out.
And Russia, Ukraine too. I guess,
right, that too. Yeah. Like just in general, these things are going on throughout the world. I think it is like...
Well, that's also in Eddington, because I just rewatched Eddington yesterday and with Dad, and there's that whole thing where he's like, well, that's not happening here, though. Yeah. So as bad as that is, we need to worry about me becoming mayor, okay? Yeah. I didn't invent COVID, okay?
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Yeah, so similarly. Oh, and I love that idea. Me and you have talked about that a lot. I love the idea, because it's true, of real lives playing out in front of these historical events, in the sense of that's not their main concern.
Yeah.
Their main concern is whatever's going on with them, and that's always true. And it's something that nobody ever talks about.
Yeah, I feel like Mad Men.
Unless you are in that, right?
How it depicts
you are in the history itself. That's a different thing. Yeah. But yeah. Anyway.
And I think too, like, because this, you know, I think it serves as a sort of background reflection of a society that's not exactly totally coming apart, but that is certainly up is down and down is up, and things are in flux. And our character never is going to say out loud or use this as a justification for, like, well, society, like, the man just keeps failing us. I'm going to take it to the man by, like, getting this stuff. But there is this, I think, unconscious, like, well, society's in flux. The outlaw is not as... Yeah, and this is also the context of the media that was coming out or in the late 60s, early 70s, is like the figure of the outlaw is something that should be championed or triumph in the face of an oppressive country or nation that's doing these things to not only its own citizens but around the world. So in general, the like quiet casual outlaw was something that was in vogue. I mean, this was an era that made like somebody like Elliot Gould a sex symbol, so it's like also what the sexy modern man could be. Weirdly, Josh O'Connor is like a reflection of that early 70s expression of that. So I think it just serves as a really rich, like...
Basically everybody in MASH was like, they were sexy, question mark.
A really rich, like, aesthetic color to use in the movie.
Yeah.
That narratively, you could take this exact same movie as far as the story, and hypothetically say, what if it was just set in the early 80s? And it's like, say, 10 years after this point. Or you could even go 10 years the other way, like in 1960, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And the nuts and bolts of the story wouldn't change, but it ultimately just serves as this, like, impression of the moment.
Yeah.
I think that it's depicted.
Yeah, and I think that another aspect of that is what you're saying about the outlaw is correct. I think what the movie's also saying, though, is he's not an outlaw for anything.
Yeah, there's no cause he's behind. Yeah.
And I think that, because he says that, or when he first goes and sees Megaro and Hoffman, and he's saying, yeah, you could go to Canada. I've got some friends up there near Toronto. And he's like, oh, what, some hippie commune full of draft dodgers? And he's like, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And then later he's like, yeah, so can I get like a ticket to Toronto? And like, that's his last card to play.
Yeah.
And it's like, but that I think it's interesting that he's, of course, laughing about draft dodgers because he's told that those people are losers.
Yeah.
But then he's kind of even more of a loser than them.
Yeah.
Because he's like doesn't even know what to do or why. He's just kind of like
again, he's literally a rebel without a cause.
Right.
In that way. Yeah. And he gets but then he uses it, like you said, to his advantage.
Yeah.
Like when there's some demonstrators, he uses them as a shield to get involved in hiding from the police that are after him or people that are looking for him. Yeah. So
it feels like a very Coen Brothers ending, also in terms of like almost God came down and just struck him down, and it
was very funny. The final scene that happens.
Yeah.
I was thinking, this would be a great place to end the movie, but it'll have another scene or two as a wrap up or epilogue. And Reichardt was very much like, no, this is the ending for this character. And like the final moments or image of that character are very, to me, darkly comic in her way to say, no, this is the end of the road. And but in a way that's like not nearly as mean-spirited or, like I said, sometimes hateful in a way that a Coen Brothers resolution can be for its characters. And in that way, I think people who like Coen Brothers movies, it's like, I imagine this is the bookshop recommendation. It's like, if you like Coen Brothers movies but are looking for something a little smoother than like...
But looking for something not stupid, like sometimes.
Yeah, then
Question mark.
Check out that Mastermind. Yeah. And I think there's an inherent comic element to the Mastermind being the title of this movie, because he's clearly not a mastermind.
Because there's that part
very quickly.
There's that part where the cops. Well, it's weird. They are cops, but are they cops? I don't know. It never really cares to answer that question. But they're like, yeah, we're detectives about the blah blah blah. He's like, well, y'all don't really look like cops, and they don't really answer the question exactly, or respond to that.
Yeah,
and they're. But they're like he said they're talking about one of the people that have been, got arrested.
Yeah.
So they are cops, but like it's kind of vague.
Yeah.
And he's like, it says you're the mastermind.
Yeah.
And it's and we both were like, oh, moment, because we do that anytime the title happens. We're like, oh, look, the moment. Yeah. But anyway, we were laughing like that. He's like the mastermind of the whole thing. It's like, yeah, okay. Like the I said this early on when we were watching it, that the title inherently is a joke because it's like he's not a mastermind of anything.
It could have also been called the brains of the organization.
Yeah, yeah, really. But yeah,
and also he's a character that doesn't really have a plan after things start falling apart.
That's the thing, because I was like, he doesn't have. What's so funny is that there's that scene later where the Gabby Hoffman character says, you were going to use our former professor as your fence, weren't you?
Yeah.
And I honestly get the sense that he's sitting there laughing, thinking that would have been a good idea. Yeah. And like he didn't even think about it, like, because he never says that out loud to anybody what he's going to do.
Yeah.
So he basically just says, "Yeah, well, we'll sell them," and they're like, "Well, how are you going to do that?" And he's like, "Just let me worry about that." And then he never explains any of that. He goes and hides where it is, and that's it. And then won't spoil about that, but basically that don't even work out. So I love how long that sequence goes on, by the way, of him getting it moved.
Yeah.
And you know that the ladder's going to fall.
Yeah.
And you're just like, when is it going to fall? Mm-hmm. And you're like, yep, there it is. And then I love he like falls and gets dirty, and then he comes home, and that's when the cops are there, and he has to like change into other clothes.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, went and got donuts.
Yeah.
They're like that crappy paper bag.
Yeah.
Which he can't get out of.
Yeah, it's true.
Also, Alana Haim, I think, gets kind of a thankless role in the movie as the wife, and she's only really in the movie half of it and a couple scenes, and then she's basically not in it anymore, except for on the phone.
Yeah, I was telling Levi that it's been a random comfort to see that. I think after Licorice Pizza, it would be easy to say, oh, she's probably only going to have that big, role for that a specific filmmaker saw for her to take. But she's been in several things since then. I mean,
one of them being One Battle After Another, but also
One Battle After Another PTA movie, but also the Mastermind, and then also the drama, which she's probably the role that gave her the most out of all three of those. Obviously, post Licorice Pizza.
Oh yeah, post. I thought you were talking about Licorice Pizza too.
So she's clearly somebody who's now a face in independent cinema that's probably going to be consistently used or drawn on. I mean, I think my overall wrap on this movie would be this is, and I say this is totally complimentary, a very Kelly Reichardt take on a heist movie where it's like the stakes are kind of low, like it's kind of a comedy of errors. You don't feel any particular dread or malice throughout it, and that's weirdly a comfort in a movie like this because you're used to being, what's going to happen, how are they going to get got, and this is more very casual, like, I'm not exactly rooting for Josh O'Connor's character to go down, but I just know that he's going to miscalculate somewhere and do something that's going to get him in trouble.
And we already said this, but it's interesting to see a new Hollywood lead character be like made now or replicated now because that's such a foreign concept to most people.
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, I think this puts me in the mind of a part that Elliot Gould would have played back in the day, maybe a Dustin Hoffman.
I could see Dustin Hoffman in this role.
And so it was a very, and I'd heard this from a lot of people, including Levi going in, it feels like a Bob Rafelson movie or something of that BBS sort of that era.
Yeah, it feels very Five Easy Pieces to a certain extent, and which came out the same year.
Why do you think
that this was set in?
Both of these movies, talking about this with Nickel Boys, were acclaimed. I think pretty much anybody who saw this movie, either one of these movies, were like pretty big fans of them. I mean, it didn't have a lot of detractors. And yet neither one of them like were ever serious like Oscar contenders or movies that could like break through. Do you think it's just because both of them within their respective years were working in crowded fields?
Well, especially for the Mastermind, that's certainly true. If you were to go back to 2024, let me look at that again. And I remember that being a good year too, but because we've had kind of 2 good years in a row. I don't know how that ever happened. But with Nickel Boys in 2024, that would have been up against Dune, The Substance, Challengers, Nosferatu, Anora, Conclave, Brutalist. I don't know. That should have had more of a...
I think, something about like... And I would think in theory, like it being a literary adaptation of a pretty big book would have helped it, but it just doesn't seem that it did. Maybe the Mastermind swims ever so closely to the waters of One Battle After Another, I think, in terms of like it being a 70s-esque like take on this play between like conceptually of like the life of radical or radicals like intersecting in society. So like there's a weird little squint and you can kind of see it connections between say the Mastermind and One Battle maybe.
Yeah.
That if and that was obviously much more clearly made by a big name filmmaker that made some money and like was this kind of culminating work, an adaptation of a Pinchon novel.
Well,
like it just had all these features going for it that made
the people in that movie are definitive ideologues too.
Yes.
Either side of it are definitively like, I believe this. This movie's like, I don't even care to believe in anything particularly.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is usually you get movies like that that are about people that are rabidly so. Yeah. They're like, I don't care, but they're like openly nihilistic. This is a very silent nihilism.
Well, isn't it funny, like, what a kind of obviously absentee father he is, or like how he doesn't really care about his wife and kids.
He takes him, because then that's probably the funniest thing in the movie is that the day they're going to rob the art museum, he takes his kids to school and they're like, oh, it's a teacher work day. And he's like,
and he can't drop them off.
Right. Yeah. So, and then his wife, he's like, can you like get him? She's like, what are you doing? You don't even have a job. He's like, I have things to do.
Yeah.
And then he basically drops them off at like a play palace or something and says like, just whatever, go.
Yeah.
And like goes and does that. And then comes back and they're like throwing up. And he's like, I said no candy.
Yeah.
Like, by the way, the Salty's parking lot.
Yes.
Think of that.
Yeah.
Where they
that.
like, oh, we got to meet at the Salty's parking lot. And then like he gets kidnapped for a little bit. And the son's there. Has to stay with the other guy, and then they bring him back, and then they drive off without him, and he's just left there.
That I can't remember that actor's name. That he's also in GTA 5.
Yeah,
he was also in The Bride. Also had John Magaro in it. So The Bride / Mastermind double feature.
Interesting.
You know, they didn't share scenes in this together.
We rewatched The Bride.
Yeah,
tried to watch it with mom and dad, and. No,
it
didn't work out.
I
guess Dad watched all of it.
Yeah,
but Mom was like, no.
Yeah,
but we were laughing about that part at the beginning, especially where Christian Bale's like, "Help! Fire!"
Yeah.
Like him trying to act like a human being is just hilarious. I'm saying Christian Bale in general.
Right.
I don't mean the Frank character.
It's always just feels like a little bonus that Reichardt comes out with a movie, because I know she's talked pretty openly about how hard it is to get movies made.
We haven't said we didn't get to see Showing Up, which was her last movie she made, which I think is on Tubi maybe, but we didn't ever get to see it before this.
Yeah,
watching this, but because I've seen basically every one of her movies except for that one.
Right.
But yeah, she's been very open about how hard it is to get movies made. Which is something that has been a little easier for Todd Haynes, her kind of colleague, mentor, sort of.
Yeah.
And he's still been able to get some stuff made, but not to the level that she has.
Right. So hopefully, and I think a movie. Like, by the way, like the movies that they consistently get behind and release, actually, they actually do try to release things in theaters. I think it's like mixed results. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They have really great taste in stuff. Like,
I don't know if I've actually seen one of their.
I know Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma, which will be coming out. That'll be one. I've seen a few. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but I just remember seeing that logo.
Yeah,
but they generally have really great taste. So, I think like the chances of this being seen, that's what's funny is like this is by far has to be one of the most accessible movies Reichardt's ever made, and I think probably the single biggest like audience this is going to find are like people that are like really into Josh O'Connor, like especially younger men and women, be like, ooh, what's another Josh O'Connor movie? And it's like and it's like kind of on a more specialty app, so it's just not going to be as widely seen. I think even more so than Nickel Boys, which is a shame because it's just a really terrific little gem of a movie that it already feels like something that is going to be this underrated thing that people point to for years to come. Any other connections you can find?
No, I think they actually were good double feature. They were a good double feature. They're very different movies, obviously, and
what's funny is the Mastermind is not especially joyful or aspirational, but coming out of having watched Nickel Boys, it inherently feels more like the stakes are lower.
Well, what's nice,
you're
I
not
think,
taking in this heavy story in the same
and the
way.
Mastermind is intentionally funny, but I think what is so comedic and enjoyable about the movie is that it just doesn't really matter what happens. This is like, this is so low stakes, who cares what? Because it's clear from the beginning he doesn't care about his family and they're happier without him anyway. So it's like, well, there's no love lost there really, so whatever happens is all just a bonus at this point.
Right. We're in the bonus
for
round.
funsies. But yeah.
Any other final thoughts on either one of these movies?
No, they're both good.
Yeah. Check out. So Nickel Boys again on Amazon Prime. The Mastermind's on Mubi. If like your local art house would happen to be showing either one of these movies in the next few years, check them out because. No. Speaking as someone who saw Nickel Boys on the big screen, I think that really did add something for me to the movie. Yeah. Even seeing it a second time, I was thinking about that experience. And I know that I would have liked the Mastermind probably even more if I would have saw it on the big screen. But it still works
you had mentioned
terrifically.
it. They have a really good 4K transfer on there that looked immaculate for streaming, especially.
But like I said, it's just anytime a Reichardt movie comes out now, it's like, oh, it feels like, okay, good, she's still out there.
Anytime a rock hard movie.
Reichardt movies.
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of rock hard movies. You see what I did there?
Yeah. All right, so before you hear the trailers for the next two movies, Jeff, what have we got next time?
Stay tuned for scenes from our next episode.
You've got a film called Slave of Love.
What we got is just these here, what you see.
It's a short film.
They're all about the same. Would you like something?
This is the movie I'm talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I just wondered if you ever seen this film of this woman right here.
That girl? No, I never seen her. I don't know anybody.
Look, I'm trying to find... Who owns this store?
I don't know. Look, man, if you're looking for somebody, maybe you ought to check the yellow pages.
Wait a minute.
I don't know nothing, man. You don't want anything for your 50 cents? Here, take your 50 cents back.
No, that's all right.
No, take it. I don't want your goddamn 50 cents.
Excuse me. Could I ask you about these?
What about them?
What are they for?
Well, light blue hank in your left back pocket means you want a blowjob. Right pocket means you give one. The green one left side says you're a hustler, right side you're a buyer. The yellow one left side means you give golden shower, right side you receive. The red one means...
Thank you.
You see anything you want?
I'm gonna go home and think about it.
I'm sure you'll make the right choice.
Before we actually get to these rock hard movies, I want to say one thing here real quickly. So Big Brother's going on. You didn't watch the Friday night Big Brother, did you? Okay.
No, I don't do the Friday
Okay, well, I don't
ones.
normally, but we watched, this is a long story, but we watched it this week for a specific reason I'll tell you off air.
Yeah.
That's real specific. We were like, are they going to talk about that? And they didn't, so it was a waste of time. Anyway, but they had Josh Martinez on there, that guy 1 years ago, that one crazy military guy on there was like, get out of my way that one time, which is one of the funniest things that ever happened. Anyway, on there they had they were with Rick Devens' family talking to them, and there was a guy on there that came on that was a good friend of his from Survivor, who basically was like hanging out with his family a little bit or whatever, and he brought like a Jeff Probst standee and stood it behind the couch while they were watching. So Anyway, the movies were...
Yeah, so you just heard clips
This
from...
is the most uncontroversial two movies that have ever... There's no controversy around these movies whatsoever.
Hardcore from 1979 and Cruising from 1980.
Yeah, there's no controversy about these movies.
This one kind of almost fell into our lap as far as like movies that just make sense to put together.
Because we each have the Blu-rays of them. You have Cruising, I have Hardcore. And we were we need to watch these.
And they're both specifically, I mean, obviously made within a year of each other.
Yeah.
Are both like the grim ending of the New Hollywood and certain figures of New Hollywood, like specifically telling these overtly sexually explicit dramatic
they're not
stories.
In an epic sense. Like, they're, like, at the same time you have... You literally in these years, like you have Coppola doing Apocalypse Now in 79, having that release in 79, and Cimino Heaven's Gate in 80, and then like Schrader doing Hardcore in 79, and Friedkin doing Cruising.
What you're saying too, like Reds is 81, so
or
it's
even
right
that,
around
right?
that time.
But point being is that they're at the time where literally they were not going to let Friedkin make another big movie after Sorcerer, and Schrader was never interested in that anyway. he had made, Blue Collar right before this, which he said was actually a really hard movie to make because of the from what I read, he said frankly the personalities making the movie of Pryor and Keitel were hard to work with. But anyway, so basically the point being is that these are smaller movies that are about nastier, grittier things.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting. I didn't think about that in terms of them as new Hollywood movies, but they are obviously. But
so obviously, first off with Hardcore, 1979,
which has maybe the greatest, one of the top 5 posters ever made.
Yeah, and I intentionally didn't want to use the famous scene that everybody knows from this movie is the sound clip. Do something a little different. But I'd never heard this. That after Warner brought Schrader's contract and took control of the project, Warren Beatty became attached as the star and producer. However, imagine this: creative clashes between Beatty and Schrader led to Beatty's departure from the production, so they couldn't get along. Imagine that. They're both.
What's funny is Schrader was probably screaming and acting like a total insane nutcase, and Beatty was just like, "I don't want to do that though."
No, I'm not going to do that. Yeah.
I want to be hardcore.
Yeah.
I am hardcore.
By the way, is released in the UK as The Hardcore Life is the name of the movie.
I'm surprised this movie even got released in the UK because of all the video nasty stuff that was going on.
Yeah, so the plot follows a conservative Midwestern businessman whose teenage daughter goes missing in California with the help of a prostitute. His search leads him to the illicit subculture of pornography, including snuff films. So obviously very intense subject matter.
No, it's all right.
And
no controversy, no mercy, no quarter.
And so this is one that we've just been wanting to do for quite a while, and this just seems like the right opportunity.
Yeah. I have a VHS of it, but it's got mold in the tape. Yeah. I can tell, so I haven't watched it. One of those movies that is very famous for that one scene. If you know, you know.
Yeah.
But there's honestly people make jokes out of the poster all the time and make it a meme. I never realized it almost looks like a Polaroid.
Yeah,
it's kind of weird because it's just a black background and his little face there. Oh my god.
So Hardcore from 1979, also Cruising from 1980, as we were saying earlier. This is a William Friedkin movie.
Yeah, interestingly, the more controversial of the two, I think, pretty easily. Very big deal at the time when it came out, being like. Wow, what the hell?
Loosely based on the 1970 novel by New York Times reporter Gerald Walker about a serial killer who is targeting gay men, particularly the men associated with the leather scene. So this is known for being this huge hot button topic of a movie that was about the emerging gay subculture that was being represented in pop culture around this time. A lot of people, the queer community and allies, now look back on this movie as saying, it was trying to do something semi-admirable back in the day, but it's obviously not as sensitive as people would look at it now.
I think the gay community immediately reacted angrily to the movie, though, at the time, because...
Well, there were, I think, protests at the time, and then there were some people saying, well, it's trying to do something, and there was a debate about it, but I think there definitely were people opposed to it then. In the midst of what was getting ready to happen with the AIDS crisis.
Right. I think that it's a little more accepted under what you said, that it's it tried and it failed, but at least it tried to do something that was a little different. Interestingly, not the first LGBT movie that Friedkin ever made. He made that movie, The Boys in the Band, in the early 70s. Mm-hmm. So, interesting. Because he's not a gay man.
No.
But, not that doesn't matter, but I'm just saying that's kind of interesting. You wouldn't think that based on his magnanimous personality. But was that 1970?
70.
Yeah. If only the Mastermind went to see that,
Yeah.
But anyway, so
this... what do you like? What do you associate with the legacy or reputation of a movie like Cruising? Because it just seemed like it has a really outsized place.
Well, it was kind of there's movies like Cruising, Irreversible, Sallow. I think this is a little lesser than that because frankly people don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
But there's those movies that just have these massive controversy surrounding them. And when you finally watch them, it's kind of a weird, experience to actually have an opinion on. I will say that, like, if you're talking about either one of those, of the ones I just said, of, like, Irreversible, I actually lightly champion and say I think is a movie worth what it is and actually is having a definitive message, whereas Sallow, I just am like, no, I don't like that, and I think it's garbage. But pretty boring garbage, too, by the way. But, or even, The Exorcist, if you're talking about even just still, like, freaking movies, like The Exorcist always had this reputation. So there's these certain movies, Eyes Wide Shut's another one. There's certain movies like that are these, and usually with a sexual, aspect, that are such a big deal. And that was becoming more of a thing in the 80s, you had stuff like The Blue Lagoon or whatever. Some of those movies that were like, oh my gosh, this movie, or even a movie like Personal Best, which were these like, oh, this movie's about a lesbian woman, or this movie's about, and they were like, had this kind of like cachet about themselves. This movie, and hardcore also, but especially this, is even more, grandiosely gross. Yeah. In a sense that I don't. So my long answer to the question is, it will be finally interesting to see this movie and have an opinion about it, because I've never been able to do that yet, So it's because it's not really an easy movie to like find and watch either. I mean, it's been on streaming, but like we just didn't watch it at one point when it was on there, and then. But it's not even like a movie now like The Devils, where it was so controversial at the time, and now it's like everybody loves The Devils. Yeah. One of the most celebrated movies that exists. Same thing with that movie Possession. Yeah. To where now this one's like, people kind of like it, or people kind of don't care. It's a curiosity. Right. It's kind of a weirder one that, like, I don't know what I'm really walking into with. I don't really know what to feel about hardcore either.
Yeah, they're both, they both feel like, they're both movies that are behind the little curtain at the video store that you've got to ask the owner to go back and look at and see.
So it's a little bit different for us because we don't love talking about explicitness exactly all the time. So that'll be an interesting one. Yeah, have a lot of fun. With these little video nasties we've got going on here. So
we'll try to take it a little easier out on the other side.
No, after that we're doing Come and See and and Trolls 3. That's what we're doing. Which is harder to watch? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I honestly don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. But that's going to do it.
We won't see with Trolls 3, but
for this episode of Ticket Stubs. I'm Kyle.
This is Levi.
Take care. God bless.
So nice. Goodbye.